Conitard, you wish to talk to us about future arrangements?
Yes, thank you, sir. Having spoken to many members over the lunch hour, the mood is to stay until the vote of no confidence is concluded. It is also the wish of the bringer of this proposition and the Chief Minister. I would also propose that a 10-minute break. We take a 10-minute break at 5:30. And sir, could I please ask if at 5:30 it could be ascertained how many members still wish to speak? As known, the number will be a great help to members and to those in the gallery. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So you're proposing that we stay until concluded this evening. Obviously, if we're reaching sort of the early hours of the morning, members might want to revisit that.
Yes.
But that's the proposition.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Is that seconded? Yes, sir. Anyone want to say anything about that? Those in favour kindly show. Those against? Very well. Then we will stay until finished. We'll take a break at 5:30. And if I remember, and I'm sure the chair of BBC will remind me, I'll seek to ascertain who still wishes to speak come 5:30. Very well. We continue with the debate. And who wishes to speak? It's going to be a very short debate if nobody wishes to speak. Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. And I rise in support of the Chief Minister. Much has already been said about keeping this debate focused on policy rather than personality. And I intend to keep my remarks to areas that I've been involved with alongside the Social Security Minister.
Sorry, excuse me. Deputy, we apparently have some sort of strange guttural noise going on.
Oh, it's the wire.
I think it's some kind of lead stuck under a door or something, but... There we are.
Thank you.
Deputy, please continue.
Thank you. So I intend to keep my remarks to areas that I've been involved with alongside the Social Security Minister and the Health Minister. It is my belief, sir, that this government is making steady progress in raising wages for the lowest paid in our community. We have had substantial above-inflation rises in minimum wage since taking office. One of the first things that this government did was to raise the minimum wage to £10.50 per hour. And this amount was above the £10 per hour, which was called for in the Reform Jersey Manifesto. From the 1st of January this year, we now have a minimum wage which is set at £11.64 per hour. And this is now higher than Guernsey and the UK and well above EU countries. Just before Christmas, we published a report on the realities of how we can achieve further increases, and the commentary on this report has been misleading, as it focused on elements that have been taken out of context. The report highlighted the feasibility of adopting a statutory minimum income standard-based living wage and explained that the term living wage has been adopted by campaigning bodies around the world to encourage employers to increase pay levels to lower paid workers. Calculations taking account of taxes paid and benefits received by a worker are then compared against net income levels against a measure of household costs. In some living wage calculations, only one household type is used to measure against. In others, averages are taken across several household types. The hourly living wage rate is then calculated based on a standard number of hours. This is a complicated calculation and requires many assumptions to be made to get to a single figure. Earning a living wage does not and could not guarantee that any particular household would be financially self-sufficient. In reality, living wages are set by campaigning organisations to encourage employers to raise wages at the lower end. They are always set above the minimum wage rates for that country, and most campaigns provide accreditation to employers who guarantee to pay higher wages. Bringing the lowest paid workers up to 2/3 of the median achieves exactly the same outcome as living wage campaigns. The 2/3 target means that no one is paid too far below the average. We are committed to achieving the 2/3 target, and this has to be done at a pace that business can cope with. We have seen over the festive period that retail has enjoyed a better than expected Christmas in terms of consumer spending, and that is encouraging. But we need to remember that for retail, hospitality and agriculture, wage bills are crucial to their bottom line, and to continue to implement above inflation rises in minimum wage could adversely affect these industries at a time when some green shoots are emerging. One large retailer recently told us that any minimum wage increases above £13 would have a negative knock-on effect across the business, as prices are already under pressure because of global events, with sharp increases in some areas very recently. Last year, this Assembly passed a proposition to allow subsidies to flow to farmers and fishers. If this money, which is so vital to the survival of these important industries, ends up being used as being spent on wage bills, we will have failed in our attempts to rescue these industries. Sir, the Chief Minister understands the need to align our minimum wage to a more realistic living wage. Indeed, this ambition was in her election manifesto, as indeed it was in the Jersey Liberal Conservative manifesto. And all that this is in dispute is the best mechanism to achieve this, and the best method of ensuring that increases in minimum wage are realistic, achievable, and sustainable. I have full confidence that we can achieve the ambition of supporting lower earners, and I have full confidence that we have a Chief Minister who does not renege on her promises, but who delivers on expectations. In relation to health and social services, we have made great efforts as a health team to get health back on track. The turnaround team and the new health board are having a positive impact, and the work that we have done to create a relationship between health and social security is a fantastic example of two departments working together for the benefit of the people of Jersey. Crashing a government mid-term is a massive step. I ask members to allow our great work to continue and to reject this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dee. Connie St Martin.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this is a sad day for the Assembly, and sir, it does not delight me in any way to say that I'm supporting this proposition, and especially what it represents in so many ways. But this Assembly needs to change course. For that, we need a new Council of Ministers. The atmosphere of this Assembly is broken. It feels stunted, diminished. So it feels like we cannot set the example expected of us for members to behave in the way that islanders need them to, and to place the Assembly in a position where it can deliver positive change that tackles the key issues we are facing, that gives islanders the hope and the knowledge that is working in their best interests. In the Chief Minister's statement to ITV, she was right to say that we need to focus on policies rather than personalities, but to do that, we actually need policies to be brought to this Assembly. In 2022, Islanders clearly rejected a model of government by press release, a council of ministers that were less interested in being in this Assembly than they were in holding a title, in being important. Sir, I, like many in here, was optimistic that the island had voted for a politics that properly embraced the role of this Assembly and wanted to move in a more inclusive and engaged direction. Unfortunately, I stand here today suspecting that a better way simply means the same direction. Rather than bring a new tomorrow, we appear to have given up on the ambition of building a better island by pursuing common goals like reducing inequality in favour of muddling through and hoping that we'll just be all right about that we can be content rather than engaged. It is my opinion, and one shared by so many in and out of the Assembly, that the Chief Minister has been spectacularly badly advised. Some of those giving advice are obvious, and I suspect others not so obvious. Expressing this calls into question her judgment and be able to navigate the advice in the best interests of the island. One particular issue of concern has been the distrust the government has shown in the Assembly and the attempts to consolidate power and influence into an ever-reducing number of people, seemingly through an increasing number of unnecessary layers of bureaucracy. For instance, the Cabinet Office, which as many understand it, appears to exist to try and control the government, message overriding the government message overriding the Council of Ministers. Similarly with the Comms Department, with its huge budget and evident failure to convince anyone, it is a government that is always one step behind, reacting to events and trying to put on the best spin on them. The active measures have been largely to rescind the work of the previous government, almost as a point of principle, and blaming the change of circumstances for them, a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The government has taken the attitude that the Assembly is in opposition, which is simply not true. And it is not necessary for the Council of Ministers to fear the Assembly and to try to reduce its influence, for example by hiding decisions and sharing press releases with the press before or at the same time as informing the Assembly. This government has diluted the power of this Assembly. This is an Assembly starved of deliberation, one that feels isolated from the government and set aside to approve propositions rather than debate their merits, scrutinise policy and make the active contribution it needs in order to make Jersey a better place to live. This Assembly is impoverished by this government's reticence to discuss from within this chamber rather than from Broad Street. And it has undermined an erratic approach to public sector leadership that has seemingly chosen to prioritise blind cuts and vague gestures to business over a genuine vision for our whole island. Regardless of which way this vote goes, this whole Assembly needs to change direction, because to continue with our current course is to risk undermining the very democratic institutions we take for granted. We have already started to see the consequence of an empty order paper. And those who have been keeping tabs on the coverage of a certain proposition will already know that I'm fed up with having to defend it because of how barren the rest of our public business is. Had we received propositions from the Chief Minister and her Council of Ministers to consider, then this simple piece of parliamentary housekeeping, brought in the proper way for members to consider, would have been just that, simple parliamentary housekeeping. Instead, it has become a rallying cry to claim that our Assembly is broken, inefficient and easy potshot. Sir, we need a government that is active and engaged in this Assembly, not just through its communications unit, but in a way that understands the risk that their approach brings, one where people who have no regard for the spirit of democracy or political collaboration, but have instead supplanted it for a great love of the words efficiency and streamlining, and whose conception of government is to have meetings with top men and sideline scrutiny and public empowerment because they think they can run the island like a company rather than the community that we are. We cannot be so fortunate that we have not only this chamber, but so many representatives in such an island, a level of representation that so many around the world can only dream of. Lose sight of this and it may be gone for good. Unfortunately, the direction of this government feels blind to this. The Chief Minister has lost sight of the public, and so she has lost my support. Whatever happens today, we're going to have to pick up and work out how we can build a more congenial Assembly, because that is what Jersey needs. Whoever the Chief Minister is by February will need to work in a way that really is open, inclusive, and understands the genuine potential amongst all 48 of their colleagues sat here today. We need to see each member develop their ideas, find support, and bring them to this Assembly to drive change and to prove what a positive impact we can have on islanders. We have just over 2 years before the next general election. This government has diluted the power of the Assembly. After today, let us try and rebuild, see what we can accomplish. After today, let us try and rebuild and show what we can accomplish. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Stevens.
Thank you, sir. Strong words from the Connotab there, but I do question where the evidence is for much of what has just been said. And I do take real issue with a suggestion that somehow the mood in this assembly and the failings of this assembly as a whole have to be laying just at the door of the Council of Ministers. I think all members in this assembly could take a long, hard look at themselves and all of us. I also open with a clarification. I wasn't going to touch on it, but Deputy Binet mentioned me by name in his opening speech, and so I will do so. I make absolutely no apologies for calling out behaviours and facts which I believe are in the public interest, and I stand by my comment around the timing of the lodging of the vote of no confidence when we now know that the Chief Minister was out of the island. To me, I would expect people to have the respect of resigning in person, and certainly allowing somebody to be able to respond in person to the media as the Deputy himself had the opportunity to do so. But of course, this debate today isn't about Deputy Binet. Sir, once wrote a column in my previous life about the size of the Council of Ministers table, which then dominated an entire room on the 9th floor of the then Cyril Lamarcon house. My suggestion was that they would get more done if they sat around a smaller table. Today, the table sits in the Government of Jersey's Broad Street office and is just as large. And for the past 18 months, I've been very privileged to have had a seat at it. As an Assistant Chief Minister, I've had an open invite to Council of Ministers meetings during that time, and I've been treated as part of the Council in a number of ways, including my access to information, invites to briefings and discussions, and so on. In addition, my Assistant Minister responsibilities have sat across 3 different departments, giving me a really unique view into the workings of a variety of portfolios: infrastructure, the Economy Department, and the Cabinet Office. A helicopter view, if you will. These experiences have enabled me to see this Council of Ministers in action, around that large table as well as in this assembly, behind closed doors as well as out in public. And I consider myself privileged to have been able to work closely with the Chief Minister during that time, developing and implementing policy on areas like population and migration and policy inclusion and engagement. Rude and thoughtless, Deputy Binet's words in his opening speech, are not words I would use to describe her, nor are they reflective of the views of a great many of other people that I have spoken to. By way of an example, the following words were posted on Facebook in recent days, not by anyone I know, and I didn't engage in the discussion. However, they show that the attempt at a character assassination playing out here today is quite simply wrong. The person says they met Deputy Moore to discuss an issue and found her to be communicative, understanding, and an excellent listener. I have every confidence that she wanted to move forward on my behalf, they say, but in order to do so, she would need some team effort. No man is an island. I too stand here today able to make a judgment based on what I've seen and experienced, based on evidence and fact. I haven't been party to it all of the time, of course, and I don't attempt to claim that I have all the answers. Nor, I should point out, would it be right to say that ministers themselves or the Chief Minister have all the answers. Leadership is not easy, and the Chief Minister and her team are human. They don't always get everything right. We know that metaphorically, the table can sometimes feel too large, and that not everyone around it has always seen eye to eye. And we also know that should this proposition this week be unsuccessful, which I very much hope it is, then the Council will need to listen, learn and act on some of what has been said during this debate, and indeed has been said by the public more generally. And they will need to make improvements in the way they do some things. But I can tell members with absolute confidence that from all that I have seen and experienced, this team, led by the Chief Minister, is absolutely committed to delivering for islanders. They are listening, engaging, and learning all of the time. That's what good leaders do. They're delivering in many areas already, and we're already starting to hear that ministers are reflecting on that within their own portfolios. They have plans in progress for more. You only have to look at the ministerial plans and associated delivery plans to see just how much work is targeted for this year. And of course, we have newly published 5 key priorities for 2024, providing an even sharper focus on the crucial areas of economic growth and productivity, delivering more homes, improving health services, doing more for children and families, and investing in St Helier. I've been particularly encouraged, sir, by this council's determination not to shy away from the really difficult stuff, the unpopular but necessary decisions. They don't put off dealing with uncomfortable subjects because of their own political interests. And they're working to tackle a long list of legacy issues which have been ignored or put in the too difficult box for too long, or fixing the mistakes of previous governments. Some examples: underfunding of the emergency services, the lapsing of community safety policies, long overdue of the review of terms and conditions for teaching assistants, teachers and head teachers, as we heard earlier from the Education Minister, that had been promised but not delivered by the previous government. Even things like retrospectively fitting air conditioning at the new Le Kennevet school, drains and water connections, funding the long overdue multi-million-pound refurbishment of the Jersey Opera House, and more. That, sir, to me, is leadership. And standing by your health minister in the face of sustained and targeted attacks is leadership. I now respectfully ask members of this Assembly to allow this government to continue with its work. A vote in favour of this proposition does the exact opposite, and it risks setting back the work of delivering for islanders, which we all agree is so important, by many months. Some of it just won't happen at all. And I fear that we will end up with the same kind of challenges facing any new council anyway. Same table, different people. Jersey's ministerial system continues to encounter the challenges of silo structures on a regular basis, and working to cut across departments and bring people together is a daily challenge, not necessarily because of the people, politically or at officer level, but because of the system or features of it. Some say we need party politics to make it work, which is a whole debate for another day. I'm also not convinced that having ministers belonging to a single party would magically make it all better. Many of the challenges would still exist. And until such a time as the system is changed, a process which will never happen overnight, even if somehow magically we all agree on what the solution is, then the way we make it work is by working together. I remain committed to the principle of collaborative working and to my position set out clearly in my manifesto that diversity around the decision-making table leads to better outcomes. But collaborative working is not always easy. It takes commitment, resilience, honesty, an ability to listen and problem solve, and a great deal of hard work. It can be messy and it can be frustrating. And it's even more difficult among a diverse group. But done well, the rewards are far greater. I've also learned starkly during the past 18 months that collaborative working doesn't come naturally to everyone. Much has and will be said about our health minister during this debate. In some ways, I believe she has the hardest job in the whole of government. And she certainly received more than her fair share of negativity, to put it politely and mildly. Quite how she's managed to stay as professional and focused as she has in the face of some of what she's been subjected to, I simply do not know. That, sir, is leadership. I'd like to reflect on an area of collaborative working with her that I've been involved in over recent months: women's health. Deputy Wilson is driving forward a women's health strategy, and as part of that work has enlisted the help of a number of female states members from within government and not, to help inform and guide that work. It's an incredibly important piece of work which will deliver improvements to health outcomes for half of our population, and a half which has for many years been largely overlooked. And so I am disappointed that the Conotable who spoke before me, who's included as part of that group, does not seem to feel that the government want to listen or engage. More specifically, the Minister has shown her willingness to listen and engage with me personally and with the infertility support charity I'm involved with, Tiny Seeds, in order to help inform future policy on assisted reproduction. This was one of my manifesto commitments. We've developed a positive and collaborative working relationship based on trust and mutual respect, on evidence and facts. And now this year, we're moving forward to deliver better outcomes for islanders which have both social and economic benefits. That is how good policies are developed and implemented, particularly in a small island community. Deputy Binet accused the Health Minister of not acting constructively on the hospital project. Sir, being dictated to by others, or one person or lobby group in particular, is not the same as constructive working. Elsewhere in my own areas of responsibility, collaborative working is helping us to harness the power of sport and physical activity to transform and protect lives and strengthen communities. We're working across many portfolios to implement the recommendations of the review of sport and correct the mistakes of previous governments when it comes to Jersey sport. This includes improving governance, accountability, our mechanisms for change, and how we measure impact and delivery. We're delivering increased investment in sport, directly by supporting performance athletes and by introducing a dedicated sports policy resource for the first time since sport was outsourced by a previous government. We're taking a whole systems approach and collaborative approach to our public sports facilities, recognising they are community spaces at the heart of island life. A play policy and associated strategy of delivery is being delivered as a direct result of collaborative working across the departments of economy, SIPES and the environment. We're also collaborating with a great number of other interested parties in this work, recognising that by working together we can do more for children and families in our island. The Population and Skills Ministerial Group continues to deliver collaborative ministerial working on population policy, including the availability of accommodation and immigration, housing and work controls, the employment market, and the skills needs of the island's economy and public services. As part of that work, ministers have committed to review the availability and quality of housing for those without full housing qualifications and to consider options for improvement. So all of this is evidence of collaborative, productive working, which will deliver positive outcomes for islanders and our island community. I could go on, but I hope I've provided members with a flavour of some of the progress that is being made by this government, regardless of what others may try to say. But there is still a lot more to do, and I hope that members will allow that to happen.
Does any other member wish to speak? If not, Deputy Barbara Ward.
Thank you, sir. I welcome the opportunity to be part of this important debate. During the past 18 months, it's been a sharp learning curve for me, understanding how the system and the workings of government are. What has been clear to me is that one must understand, under this present system, that the Council of Ministers rule okay. My view reached is because of all the many news releases being published without any reference back to the Assembly. And at times I found this quite disenfranchising. Sir, I may be one of the few members in this Assembly that gave written and oral evidence to Sir Cecil Clothier when he was consulting with interested parties time past. The view presented at that time was Jersey should not go down the road and develop into a mini Westminster. Jersey is a Crown dependency and, as we know, makes its own laws, albeit with agreement with the Privy Council. But in essence, Jersey is self-governing, and this is what makes Jersey unique and special. During my time as a leading trade union representative, 25 years, I worked with the committee system, which worked well. The committee system was collaborative, open, transparent, accountable, and in turn accountable to the Assembly. There was more joined up thinking, and committee's members felt that they had a voice. The committee involved states members from across government, regardless of the members' political party views. It was more inclusive. So, in 2005, some 19 years ago, Jersey adopted the Clothier Report recommendations, and the journey began, changing Jersey, in my view, into a mini Westminster. The change of accountability, the chain of the accountability changed, answerable to, at that time, the chief executive, who was an unelected individual. And in my view, that is when the pathway to chaos commenced. From my experience and observations over the past 18 months, it is clear that this UK-style ministerial system is broken and doesn't work for Jersey. Power is reliant on 12 ministers, albeit 15 if we include our 3 assistant chief ministers, working, in my view, in a silo, reliant on non-elected personnel for advice and guidance on what is discussed privately at the Council of Ministers table, with the rest of the Assembly not truly consulted or collaborated with. This is, in my view, is not a democratic process. By its nature, purports to a dictatorial behaviour, which I find disturbing, and from what I hear from islanders, they concur. For me, the introduction of the Cabinet Office was the last jigsaw piece of this mini Westminster, and for me was the last straw. It's the concept and introduction of a Cabinet Office and not the individuals, who I'm sure are doing a grand job. And if it's agreed to have a change coupled with a new look going forward, this would be an opportunity to save millions of pounds, which can be better spent elsewhere, like in health, education and infrastructure. We need to turn to a committee system with some variation, some halfway house. This would bring in all members of the Assembly to be part of an inclusive decision-making processes rather than confrontational scrutiny committees. Yes, we need some critical friend, scrutineering, watchdog aspects to provide second thoughts and assurances. For example, PPC, PAC, SEB, etc. I would urge members to think seriously about this and support some type of hybrid system. So, sir, one would ask, what does this have to do with this vote of no confidence? Well, sir, in my view, it has everything to do with it. The present system, as I've stated, is broken and leads to more escalation of disharmony, resulting in where we find ourselves today, basically due to the lack of collaboration and inclusion of all states members. Today's debate is not a vote for Deputy Binet to be Chief Minister, but for our members to vote for change, which is desperately needed, in my view. I'm not going down the road to make sparring comments of one deputy against the other, which I feel is fruitless. We must look at the wider picture and consider the escalated dissatisfaction facts that has been presented today. I personally don't do social media per se, but have been guided by parishioners and islanders. It is they who want this change, and they are right. I must listen to them, as they are the people who turn out on election day to vote. This is a good opportunity for members of the Assembly to vote for this proposition, and an opportunity for those able and willing to set out their store to be our next Chief Minister and make positive, collaborative changes and decisions to take this government forward. If I may, sir, quote a famous saying by John Lydgate: "You can please some people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you cannot please all the people all of the time." Thank you, sir, and the Assembly for listening. Thank you.
Very much. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. It is said in politics and business that you should not take things personally. As any politician and person of business of reasonable maturity knows. 2 members of the Council of Ministers have so far suggested that the Chief Minister shouldn't be judged on her style of leadership. Style is about standards. And such comments highlight how some of the Chief Minister's choice of members of her council are or have become somewhat detached from the productive and highly professional culture that has been the foundation of the island's economic success. Let me inform or remind them, performance reviews are a common feature of well-performing organisations, something of which we already know there aren't enough in the public sector. The head of an organisation may change, but that does not mean the whole organisation collapses. Often, it is stronger as a result of a change of style. From a position of leadership I have held, I have experienced what are known as 360-degree reviews. Often I have learnt from them and improved as a result of them. The chair of the State's Employment Board, the Chief Minister, could have shown better leadership by responding more positively and more conciliatorily towards this type of scrutiny of her performance. And sometimes in performance reviews, it will be agreed that a person isn't in the right place in an organisation and would be more productive and effective in a different role. This is what a vote of no confidence is about, as far as I and islanders who have sought to give me views on this matter are concerned. It is an expression of whether you have a confidence in the Chief Minister continuing in the position in which the State's Assembly has placed her after reviewing material issues of concern. And I have established that the Chief Minister believes she is doing a good job. But the question is whether that self-confidence is misplaced. In this State's Assembly, there could be described as a conflict in cultures between those of us from a high-level business background who prefer to be direct and transparent as much as possible to support clear and productive teamwork, and those of us whose focus is more a media image and courting popularity. Our civil service, who barely ever had a mention by members of the Council of Ministers, and who very much support stability, need leadership that makes them feel safe, respected and secure. This is why reports of a bullying culture in the Council of Ministers gives rise to such concern both inside and outside this State's Assembly. The reputational damage and effect on morale and productivity is immense. Is it possible that the Chief Minister may not know what bullying is, despite the definition provided on government's own website? This includes offensive, intimidating, malicious or insulting behaviour and misuse of power through means that undermine, humiliate, denigrate or injure the recipient. And I don't have a confidence that she does. And I don't have confidence that because of that, she's able to ensure that members of her Council of Ministers have that knowledge to inform their standards either. States members and the public have witnessed the denigration of Deputy Bene by members of this Council of Ministers in response to his raising the subject of bullying, in response to him daring to challenge. And members of my scrutiny panel were denigrated by a minister and assistant minister for daring to challenge government spending in this state's chamber. 2 reports by the Commissioner for Standards have found instances of ministerial bullying and the use of confidentiality, which is a form of gagging, a form of silencing, to counter reasonable and non-malicious challenge. Do I believe the former Chief Executive was the subject of bullying, whether intentional or not? From her tearful reaction to an innocent question that I asked her, I believe she was traumatised from her experience of our Council of Ministers, at least. Scrutiny only is productive if it operates on the principle of teamwork, the embracing of challenge and transparency. relationships have broken down on the Chief Minister's watch, partly because of her own tolerance of unsupportable ministerial conduct. And this is unsatisfactory leadership by the chair of the State's Employment Board, given the extent to which bullying has been identified in the public sector. I don't know whether or not she's been perpetrating it, but I do believe she should not be condoning it or tolerating it in any way whatsoever in the manner that it appears that she has been doing. Deputy Binet has mentioned morale in his report. I'm concerned that the Chief Minister and some of her Council of Ministers appear to be blind to such matters. The Chief Minister expresses plenty of self-confidence, as you might expect from a polished media presenter. But I still maintain that, genuine or not, that confidence is misplaced. And one thing, the importance to stability is the soundness of political decisions. We have seen U-turns and knee-jerk reactions that suggest the Chief Minister's process for producing policies is not as stable as she might suggest. In response to this vote of no confidence, the Chief Minister announced brand new policies to the Chamber of Commerce 7 days ago, as if she had pulled them out of a hat. They include announcements of savings that did not exist when States members reviewed the government plan only 4 years ago and which had avoided scrutiny. The doubling of a productivity support scheme funded at public expense was announced by the Chief Minister only 6 weeks ago, after her Minister for Sustainable Economy had informed scrutiny that the scheme was to be reviewed for effectiveness. Was this work even done? Or was it a knee-jerk reaction advised by a kitchen cabinet, to whom the Chief Minister perhaps pays more heed than her colleagues, her advisors and scrutiny? A marketing gimmick used by the Chief Minister to buy popularity outside the State's Assembly using taxpayers' funds? Did it impress members of the State's Assembly and scrutiny, the ones with the votes? It does not seem to have much impact on the vast majority of the constituents who contacted me on this matter, including key players in the business community, who are the cornerstones of our island's economy. Concerns about the governance and oversight of separate entities as delivery arms continue, concerns that were raised by our Controller and Auditor General too. Another perceived gimmick, the 100-day plan, was a mishmash of popularity-seeking ideas that seemingly came from nowhere and anywhere, and haven't all been delivered even now. It never was formally approved by the State's Assembly or scrutinised. The pressure put on civil servants and scrutiny to deliver it was considerable. Yet the most substantial and meaningful government improvement, potentially, the establishment of the long-awaited public ombudsman, has yet to be delivered. A communication department capable of producing spin with an eye-watering budget was. The value for money review that has been trumpeted has been reduced to the wielding of a machete over government departments and grant-funded agencies to seek headlines cuts to be described as savings. So I'm not a fan of excessive public spending, but this is a repeat of the efficiencies imposed on the public sector in the past that had no long-lasting effect. It is far removed from the systemic reviews and changes that the Controller and Auditor recommended to the public to achieve value for money for the taxpayer, with fewer lights and whistles. Many of my constituents are of a senior age and concerned about healthcare. They want a viable hospital, not a state of war. Another buzzword used by the Chief Minister in her search for popularity is balance. The only way to keep a spinning plate balanced is to keep it spinning, but it is not stable. As soon as the spinning stops, it will crash. So more and more time has to be invested in keeping it spinning, when in truth it needs to be picked up with a trustworthy pair of hands and placed on a base with more substance. We don't have balance in the Chief Minister's choices for her Council of Ministers. There are pockets of excellence that any reasonable successor is likely to maintain. However, some challenging roles have been given to those whose backgrounds are more in media and marketing than working through extremely complex and difficult situations. Spin over substance does not bear up to scrutiny, making scrutiny a miserable and depressing experience for stakeholders who have sought to serve in that area. Yes, it does affect their morale. And what about those who can't complain, owing to the circumstances in which they are required to keep matters confidential so that they are invisibly gagged? The former chief executive, a bright and authentic individual, diminished to someone who showed trauma. Was the chief minister aware of this? I don't believe that she was. The sad truth is that when you are focused on image, you are not self-aware. This is the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. And in a forum where transparency happens to be desirable and this has been used as a buzzword by the Chief Minister, we have seen little in the way of meaningful progress too. Being gagged by confidentiality in many cases unnecessarily has not only led to non-disclosure of serious concerns, but also led to many misunderstandings among members of the State's Assembly. This is not good for democracy, for productivity, nor for teamwork. Paths to organisational excellence and economic recovery are not forged by compromise and going in different directions at the same time, nor by surrounding yourself with political allies and deflecting challenge. Trust is not built by saying one thing and doing another, and democracy founders when bullying is tolerated. Sir, it is true we will never have a perfect Chief Minister. And many of the Council of Ministers would have delivered in their areas well under different leadership too. It would be an absolute indictment of the civil service if nothing had been delivered despite their continuous work behind the scenes. This island needs a steadier pair of hands for me to have confidence in the Council of Ministers' leadership. And that is what is required for morale within the State's Assembly, the public sector, the island at large, and perhaps even within the Council of Ministers as a whole to be recovered. Also to rebuild the reputation of the State's Assembly and our faltering economy too. It has been suggested there is no viable alternative to the Chief Minister. I look around this Assembly and see plenty of competent and experienced people, both within and outside the Council of Ministers, in whom I have confidence to take government forward knowledgeably, prudently, ethically, and with a clear vision and direction, who will be able to steer the ship away from rockier ground, the rockier ground it's heading towards, if it continues under star leadership that we all have been witnessing and been subject to. I therefore will be supporting this vote of no confidence with the majority of the support of the people who have contacted me on this matter.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So just last month, this Assembly approved the government plan. The government plan was brought by this Chief Minister leading this government. That crucial document set out this government's funding positions as led by this Chief Minister. And it was approved by this Assembly by a clear majority. Surely that demonstrates this Assembly's confidence in this government and in this Chief Minister. I am therefore incredulous that on the basis of just 4 signatures, we are debating that confidence. I would call on all States members to put aside their own political aspirations and think of what is best for this island. As well-respected businessman Kevin Keane, OBE, commented recently, really hope ministers will remember we elected them to make all islanders' lives better. There's still a way to go, so please forget all score settling and find a way to work together in the public interest. Sir, in his report on the proposition, Deputy Tom Binney makes the assertion that the morale amongst states members is very poor, with many long-standing members claiming the current situation to be worse than under the previous government. It is no secret that the same can be said of many members of the public. That's a sweeping statement. And to be honest, I can't remember a time when the public has ever come out and said they are happy with the existing government. It's probably why those of us who are new in this assembly stood in the first place. I don't see a lack of morale. In fact, I think the assembly has worked well together. The evidence is in the recently taken vote on the government plan, which was overwhelmingly supported by this assembly. So, like the deputy, I recognise the frustration of the time it takes to instigate change. As someone who runs their own business, I'm used to making quick decisions to enable our survival. It's quite Darwinian in nature, but government has to constantly consider the bigger picture and the impact of our decisions on the whole community. That's not to say we can't do things quicker and more efficiently. Such discussions regularly take place in the Council of Ministers. Just look at the initiative taken by the Minister of the Environment. He instigated the McKinnon Review of Planning. It's clearly highlighted deficiencies in the process, and work is underway to make significant improvements. We all want government to be nimble in bringing about change, but we have to appreciate that the timeframes will be different to those in the private sector. Government is more akin to a large freight train than a Formula One car. I now want to pursue this analogy because I think it's really important that this assembly grasps the implications of changing leadership, coming up to halfway through a term. Back in June 2022, the people of this island set us on a course. Effectively, we all got on that moving train. Of course, some of us were already on it. Some left and a new driver took over, but the train was still moving. It had to slow down to get us on board, but it didn't stop completely. As this government set the new course, so we've gradually built momentum. Momentum is an important word when it comes to dealing with large projects and organisations. Take a look at the Merchant Square development on Bath Street. A friend of mine intended to move in to one of those apartments in the summer of 2023. Here we are in 2024, and there's still little sign of that apartment being delivered. When you stop, it takes time to fix things and get back on track. It's taken Andium, for instance, 5 years to refurbish thousands of homes to bring them up to decent home standard, following years of underinvestment by previous governments. But Andium completed this work 5 years ahead of schedule, and they are racing on with their capital build programme to deliver more homes. We've picked up momentum. Who would suggest that we stop? When things break, we have to stop the train to carry out repairs. Just like our social housing stock, our health service and our planning system all needed fixing. It takes time to rebuild momentum. The good news is we have that momentum. But what the proposer of this proposition is looking to do by asking for a change of leadership is to lose that momentum, effectively taking our government freight train into a siding and stalling. Come the next election, all the old frustrations that the states can never get anything done with land with all of us, not just government. We have a duty to keep that momentum going, delivering what this Assembly has asked for in the short time we have left. I want to be part of an Assembly that gets things done. Don't we all, sir? This is a team effort, whether you are in government or not. If I want to make progress on vacant homes, that unbelievable wasted resource, I need the support of the Committee des Connétables. If we succeed in our objectives, that benefits everyone. I look to the Constable of St Saviour, who unfortunately isn't in the Assembly today, and reflect upon the fact that the Environment Minister has now issued supplementary planning guidance on the old St Saviour's Hospital site. Nothing has happened there in decades, yet by working collaboratively with Deputy Binet, Deputy Reniff and myself, we've got the ball rolling. And I hope the Connétable will be there to cut the ribbon when new affordable homes are delivered on this site. Again, I use the word momentum. I can't reiterate enough how much the success of this government is down to the collaboration of this Assembly. Deputy Barbara Ward may not agree with everything I say or do, but she did lead on the rent-a-room policy. That's more effective use of our built environment. Despite criticism from the Reform Party, I can't help but reflect on how many of the issues raised in their Housing Crisis Action Plan are actually being delivered by this government. The only difference is that I've chosen a different approach to achieve the same ends. That narrative that things cannot continue as they are suggests we have to stop the train, stop the momentum. But we're all heading for the same place. Why don't we just stay on that moving train? Finally, sir, I refer back to the comments made by Kevin Keane, OBE, and remind the Assembly of the many times we've said to play the ball and not the person. We can all get frustrated on occasion with the actions of others, but we cannot forget that this government is delivering for the people of this island. This Assembly has voted overwhelmingly in favour of the government plan. We have momentum. Let's get on and deliver. I urge members to reject this proposition. Thank you.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. In standing to speak, I'm speaking to provide a unified voice for Reform Jersey's 10 states members, and it's our intention that this will be our only contribution to this debate, unless, of course, something drastic changes in the meantime. In this vote of no confidence against Deputy Christina Moore as Chief Minister of Jersey, I think it's important to start by recognising the personal toll that I'm sure this debate will surely have had on her. This whole debate is destined to be unpleasant and unedifying for all of us, no matter which side of it we fall on. My personal experiences of Deputy Moore have all been pleasant, and I wish her no ill will or unhappiness. As an island, we ought to be grateful that Deputy Moore has been willing to serve as Chief Minister for the last 18 months, knowing the dedication it takes and the personal sacrifices that inevitably have to be made to do the job, the time with family that must be foregone, the late nights and early starts, and all of the behind-the-scenes efforts that will never be acknowledged. But in answering the question, do we have confidence in Deputy Moore as Chief Minister, we cannot consider it a personal matter because it's about so much more than that. It's about Jersey. Being Chief Minister of Jersey is not a consolation prize given to someone for merely trying hard and having good intentions. It's an honour and a privilege to hold the role, a role that is only temporarily bestowed upon someone on the understanding that they are the right person who can take Jersey forward. And once they are given that role, they're not entitled by right to keep it, come what may. So we therefore cannot look at this debate as just being about the feelings of one person. It's about Jersey and our future. And I'm sorry to say that 18 months into this term of office, it is clear that our leadership is not working. For the last year, at least, the government has been beset by dysfunctionality, open warfare between ministers, openly undermining one another, accusations of bullying and being disingenuous to the public on key matters of huge importance, like the resignation of the former CEO. 3 members of government have resigned in the last 2 months, including one who had demonstrated steadfast loyalty to the Chief Minister for so many years. Any argument against this motion of no confidence based on maintaining stability cannot be taken seriously when we didn't have any stability to start with. In the report to the proposition, several serious claims are made about the behaviour that has gone on behind the scenes. And as most of us are not members of the Council of Ministers, we cannot speak to the accuracy of those claims. If what Deputy Binet says is accurate about the way the CEO was treated by the Chief Minister, then that is appalling and inexcusable. If the counter-accusations made back at Deputy Binet, which include more than just an insinuation of misogyny, are accurate, then it's appalling that the Chief Minister didn't sack him for it. Either scenario points to the poor judgment of the Chief Minister. But as I said, most of us don't know what's really happened, so we have to look at the broader issues too. The Chief Minister's propaganda machine has been working in overdrive for the last 2 weeks, trying to cobble together some successes to boast for the government. That is work that is necessary because the government's record doesn't exactly speak for itself. People don't feel like their lives are getting better, and that's because they're not. For every nominal action that the government has taken to improve their conditions, this has been undone by inflation, real terms pay cuts, rent increases. Islanders are not better off. The government's response to the cost of living crisis has been to just increase benefits and tax allowances, basically give out free money, rather than dealing with the root causes of growing inequality. And as it stands, we have every reason to think that this will carry on. Like pretty much everyone of my generation who I speak to, I am genuinely scared for the future of my island. Jersey is facing a terminal decline. We saw statistics recently showing that in each of the last 2 years, we had a net loss of around 900 locally qualified islanders. That's people deeply connected to Jersey, leaving in greater numbers than we can remember seeing before to live their lives elsewhere. Nobody in this chamber will be untouched by this, whether it's friends you know, or maybe even your children, losing hope that they might have the kind of life here that their parents enjoyed. Our island is suffering both economically and socially. And if we cannot fix this, we may cause so much damage to the fabric of our society that it will take generations to repair it. Food bank usage, sir, at record levels, a mark of shame on a wealthy island like Jersey. And so bad has the situation got that we're even witnessing charities expressing outright hostility against the government approach to it, something I can't recall seeing to this degree ever before. So I ask members, what single, tangible, defining policy can you think of that the current Chief Minister has to resolve this? You can't think of any, can you? You might recall lots of nice words: inclusivity, collaboration, open-mindedness, but all of these address the vibe, not the substance. In her speech earlier, and in that just made by the Housing Minister, the Chief Minister prayed in aid the overwhelming adoption of the government plan at the end of last year as a mandate for their government and action. I get the impression that other ministers may continue to repeat this line in this debate. But as we've already explored this morning, that government plan lasted just 9 days before it was unilaterally changed by the Chief Minister, which she did without even telling states members, let alone asking for our permission through a proposition in this Assembly to retrospectively amend it. It was poor judgment to take the Assembly for granted yet again. Judgment we have seen time and time again through broken promises. But sir, even with this record, Reform Jersey has tried to be constructive. It would be extremely easy to just throw stones or seek to exploit the political environment for our own benefit, and I have no doubt that some would cynically expect that to be exactly our approach. But it's not what we did. We didn't jump on the bandwagon, and we didn't nail our colours to the mast with a knee-jerk reaction. We decided that we would try to be constructive and offer what we could to resolve the situation. We met with the Chief Minister and some of her colleagues twice. We did not make demands. We did not ask for roles to be given to us in exchange for our support. We asked only that our ideas for getting Jersey back on track were considered and that the government would do some introspection over this whole affair, learn from it, and start to genuinely represent the change that they originally sold to islanders in their pitch to form this government. At the first meeting, where Reform Jersey wanted to encourage action, ministers made it clear to us that politics for them is more about process. Nothing could be done without a review, a consultation, or the setting up of a new committee or board. I have to question what the point in even having elections is if that's how all decisions are to be made. But so it was after that first meeting that the final straw came. On Friday, we learned through a leaked letter, rather than just imposing the pay offer on Jersey's teachers, as the government is actually entitled to do, the government was doubling down on its divide and conquer tactics by requiring teachers to reveal how they voted in a secret ballot and banning them from taking industrial action if they don't do so. Sir, this approach is dangerous. It takes us down a dark path where the democratic rights of Jersey residents are cast aside for the sake of cheap political expediency. That is the kind of thing we expect from the Trumps, the Bravermans and the Bolsonaros of this world, not Democrats who respect civil liberties. Democracy is sacred and we are incensed at the approach they have taken, but also deeply concerned at the legal liability this may expose the government to when the unions quite rightly challenge this. And again, it goes back to the question of judgment. This action will make things worse, not better. It further makes enemies of people who ought to be our partners in delivering the best education system possible for our young people. And so, sir, we have therefore come to the conclusion that there is just no chance of anything getting better as things are. I know that many members in this Assembly who don't particularly politically align with myself or my colleagues will be feeling a lot of pressure from their constituents and parishioners too, not to mention, I'm sure, from other states members. We hear all sorts of whispers and rumours about deals being done. And for the record, sir, Reform Jersey has done no deals with anyone, including the proposer of this motion. But I urge members to have the confidence to stand up and be counted, be prepared to say that enough is enough and do what's right for the island. So I want to finish with a quote that I hope members will heed. Change is a difficult thing sometimes, but sometimes change can be the catalyst of good. And when something is fundamentally not working, it is not sensible to continue doing the same thing and expect a different result. So that was Senator Christina Moore in 2021 when she brought a vote of no confidence against the Chief Minister, John Lafondre, in the middle of the pandemic. I urge the Assembly to heed those words.
Any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition? Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. These last few weeks have been a period of rumours, whispers, resignations and deals behind closed doors. Is this the way we should be governed? Over the past year, there have been resignations of 4 key people: the Chief Executive Officer, the Assistant Chief Minister, 1 Assistant Minister of Health and the Minister of Infrastructure. In business, 4 such resignations would be seriously alarming. In politics, this is also the case and questions need to be asked. We have been told that the then Minister of Infrastructure was warned in December 2023 by the Treasury Minister that he was about to lose his job. He decided to go before he was pushed. But is this the way for a leader to convey their wishes to one of the most important members of their team, an individual who has been working tirelessly and is putting plans in motion to sort out so much of the creaking infrastructure of the island, sir? I think not. I read in the JP on January the 6th that the transport element of the Minister of Infrastructure's job had already been taken away, with no discussion as to the effect on the team, nor the intended consequences, and certainly no mention of this alteration to the States members. Yet on Saturday, the 12th of January, in her interview with the JP, we learned that the Chief Minister that this alteration may not, in fact, be a fait accompli. Sir, please may we be informed who now is responsible for transport? And there are other important questions that need answering. Does the Chief Minister still support the new health facilities programme? Does the Chief Minister support an acute hospital at Overdale? Or would the Chief Minister prefer the acute hospital to be at Kensington Place? And if she does, is this feasible? Could this actually work? And what are the costs? Having asked the Minister of Infrastructure to review the previous plans and set him off down a particular track, is this what she still requests? If she has changed her mind, sir, then please would she be kind enough to convey her thoughts to us all. Please can she also let us know the answer to the question asked by the Reform Party? Does she intend Deputy Steve Iyer as her nomination for Minister of Infrastructure to also be in charge of the new health facilities project? And if it is not to be him, who does she propose for the role, please? And there are other questions. Why did the Chief Minister choose to back her Minister of Health and Social Services rather than heeding the legitimate views of her Assistant Chief Minister? The Constable of St John is a good and honest man, a most trusted friend and supporter. So why did the Chief Minister stop listening to him? Why was she prepared to accept his resignation rather than acknowledging his genuine concerns? Is this how you treat an individual who has voluntarily given up hours and hours of his time to help and support you and assisted you to win several elections? Has Professor Massey Taylor's contract as interim chair of the Advisory Health Board now ended? How much has the delay of choosing a new interim chair or chair cost us, sir? It all started so positively. The first 100 days benefited islanders with such things as helping with the cost of living crisis and repurposing Westaway Court for vital accommodation. At the beginning, we were all invited to meet up with the Chief Minister regularly. She knew what we were thinking. But some 19 months on, this is no longer happening, and cracks are appearing, sir. Tensions are becoming apparent. and whispered suggestions that other ministers are to have parts of their portfolios taken from them, and one assistant minister openly castigated in the media. Some individuals have been promised roles, only to have them snatched away before their very eyes. Not a happy atmosphere, sir, and the lack of cohesion is unsettling for us all, and we're not doing the best for the people of Jersey. The Chief Minister works hard, and I know she wants the best for the island, and I realise it is a difficult job, and it does take a huge toll on anyone. But at the moment, we are rudderless, sir. We are flip-flopping in the doldrums, and I am struggling to be positive. There may have been some progress in some areas, but I'm afraid it is negligible, sir. What have we achieved? The talents of many of those in the Assembly are being stifled. Many states members, those not in government, have been saying, we cannot go on like this. We are not thriving. Promises of openness, transparency and accountability have not materialised. There are still significant problems on the table. Increasing use of food banks, islanders struggling, a burgeoning civil servants, more red tape and unnecessary bureaucracy, and services that are either not working or else proving a massive barrier to progress by individuals and businesses. Serious problems with IT systems, admittedly poorly procured by the previous government, may be being looked at but are far from sorted, resulting in difficulties and glitches for islanders, especially in relation to the tax office, planning department and the hospital. Little has improved in health. We are still losing vital frontline personnel, and others are seriously disillusioned. We have uncontrolled government spending, yet the threat of more taxes coming down the line. My family have said, why don't you all talk about a particular problem that needs solving and solve it? I said, sadly, it doesn't work like that. The views of the majority of states members are not taken into consideration. The Chief Minister holds ultimate power. There is a top-down, divide-and-conquer mentality with low morale and dissatisfaction in the Assembly. Regrettably, sir, this stems from a lack of proper leadership at the top. So now I think it is a time to change the driver, sir, to deliver for the people of Jersey. A change of driver will not stop the momentum of the train. It will encourage us. It might make us go faster. Sir, now is a time for action, a time to unite and get things done under a unifying leader for the just over 2 years we still have left. Please support the proposition, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Labbit.
Thank you, sir. I must confess, as my colleagues know very well, I have struggled to find a way forward on this vote of no confidence debate. It is unfortunate indeed that both deputies could not have resolved their differences behind closed doors and devised a practical way of working together, rather than exposing us all to this rather unedifying spectacle, which will undoubtedly do Jersey harm. I fear much damage will be done internationally, where we rely on our reputation and like to promote ourselves as a mature, stable jurisdiction, contrary to the on-island situation we find ourselves in today, where the right and centre-right publicly scrap it out again, while Reform Jersey, to their credit, come out of this as a well-organised, credible alternative.
At this point, I think I should explain, as there seems to be a belief, especially among some of my constituents, that if this vote of no confidence is successful, it automatically determines the next Chief Minister. It does not. This vote is a vote to bring down the government. The vote for a new Chief Minister will be a debate for another day, and I dare say that there will be a number of candidates who choose to put their names forward. So plainly put, if Deputy Binet is successful in this vote of no confidence, it does not necessarily mean he will be the next Chief Minister, because that is not what we are voting on today. I think it's important to make that clear. It is also worthy of consideration that if this vote of no confidence goes through, and after a new Chief Minister has been elected, that person will have to form a new government. The new ministers will select the members they wish to be their assistant ministers, and the scrutiny chairs will need to select the members they wish to be on their panels. After the new Council of Ministers has been constituted, under Article 19(7) of the States of Jersey 2005 law, then we'd be required to lodge a new common strategic plan within 4 months, as set out under Article 18(2)(a). Depending on if there is major change in direction and priorities within this new CSP, there may be a requirement to lodge major changes to the government plan to fund the new priorities, which can only be changed by a proposition from the Council of Ministers. Any changes to the government plan will need to be reviewed by scrutiny before being debated. This has the possibility of slowing down or stopping projects and services that are currently being delivered, and can fundamentally change the reviews being undertaken by scrutiny. This outline demonstrates how a successful vote of no confidence can be disruptive and time-consuming, potentially hindering good governance and service delivery in Jersey. I think the whole island would rather see the elected members show more collaboration than confrontation. Having said all that, I recognise things have not been as well organised, focused, and especially communicated as best as they could have been. We as an island are facing some real challenges, not least a cost of living crisis, people leaving the island, manpower shortages for business and investment to maintain our infrastructure, falling economic productivity, as we try to return Jersey to the happy place I once grew up in. All of this makes having a debate about ourselves as the first item of business in 2024 as embarrassing. My colleagues will be sick to the back teeth of me saying we need a common vision for our long-term future. This needs a collective, collaborative effort of us all of us who stood for election and who obviously have a passion to make this island a better place. I listened to the Constable of St Martin and Deputy Barbara Ward's speeches with interest. I also question ministerial government being right for us. As one of the 3 members in this assembly who actually served in the committee system, it is a known fact that I remain a fan of it, or at least a hybrid version thereof. I believe that it would remove a lot of the mudslinging and create a more conducive way to a constructive working environment, especially in a small community such as ours. In the last elections, the electorate chose, as is their perfect right, to make wholesale changes to the members of this assembly. Some very welcome changes, as we have more women representing the island, making it more reflective place, making it a more reflective assembly of the community we serve. The electorate had long since articulated the need for a general election and the ability to get rid of the whole lot of us if desired. But everything has its price, and the consequences is that there are a lot of new members, 6 of whom are seated around the Council of Ministers table, all with strong opinions, different ways of working, inexperience of a democratic working environment, and in some cases, a degree of political naivety. And in fairness to the Chief Minister, she took on this challenge to reflect the desires of the electorate and has worked tirelessly since being elected. A lack of common mandate is not the only difficulty. I believe there are other challenging factors in our structure that need addressing. Gifting the Chief Executive Officer greater authority under Proposition P1 2018 is another area of concern. And Deputy Balash was so right to advocate against it at the time, as the public expect us, their elected representatives, to be able to do far more than what we are actually able to do by law. This leads to frustration by the members willing to serve and disappointment of the electorate expecting immediate change and delivery. That, however, does not mean there has not been progress in many areas. And as other ministers have touched on their particular delivery, I too have been making strides to deliver under my area of responsibility. I have responded, or my team, my wonderful team at JOA, have responded to 87 global humanitarian emergencies in 18 months, including the Turkey-Syria earthquake, Ukraine crisis, Sudan, South Sudan, the Horn of Africa food crisis, Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, Yemen, occupied Palestinian territories, Central African Republic, Cyclone Freddy in Malawi, etc., etc. We have launched 22 new development projects supporting 325,000 direct beneficiaries, incorporating the work of Durrell and the RJA and HS across 3 thematic areas and 6 target countries. We've added Zambia to the list of countries where tens of thousands of people benefit from improved dairy techniques and genetics using our beloved Jersey cow. We've offered diverse opportunities to islanders, including careers in the UN. All of this might seem like a far cry to us here in Jersey, but it demonstrates that we are an outward-facing island, a good global citizen. We take our international obligations seriously, and so we are worthy of our place on the international stage. However, I agree that these outcomes might not have been articulated to islanders, or indeed other members as well as they might have been. But there's always a fine balance of getting on with the job or doing a PR exercise on it. If I could have chosen a way forward to alleviate the current situation of this vote of no confidence, it would have been for Deputy Tom Binney to stay as Minister for Infrastructure, as I believe he was doing an excellent job there and is probably indeed the best TTS or infrastructure minister we've ever had, and to expand his knowledge on the workings within government and then put his hat in the ring for Chief Minister next term, when I would give him my wholehearted support. I'm sorry, sir, I cannot be more positive, but I find this a very negative, damaging debate to all, and especially to our island. Thank you, sir.
Grant Arbson-Tellier.
Thank you, sir. I was hoping to go after the Constable of St John, but he hasn't even reached for his button yet. So I decided I would have to speak earlier, not least because some of the speeches we've had this afternoon have been really depressing. And I started to feel quite glum listening to Deputy Howell in particular about the state of the island. And I was thinking, well, actually, the world itself is in a pretty bad place as well. Some of the things she's putting at the laying at the door of the Chief Minister are actually problems which we've got in common with most other countries. And it was a great pleasure to follow the Deputy Gruville, who, in setting out her ministerial portfolio and her achievements as a minister, I think brought us back to the real world, the sufferings of people around the world that make it such an unstable place at the moment. But I am grateful to the Constable of St John because and obviously it's sad that he resigned, but in resigning he made a space for me on the Council of Ministers. And as members will probably know, I've been on the outside, I've been on the back benches for more than 20 years. And so to come inside the tent, although I'm only a rookie Assistant Chief Minister, I've only had about 6 weeks inside the tent, sir. I must say that I'm immensely heartened by what I've found. I'm encouraged by the people I'm working with, not only the elected members, but actually the civil servants, some of whom I'm sure in the past I've tended to be somewhat frivolous about, particularly when it came to communications. And these people have earnestly shaken my hand and welcomed me to government. And I'm learning a lot, and I'm optimistic that this Council of Ministers can deliver a great deal in the next 2 years. So, as I say, I'm grateful to the Constable of St John. His loss is my gain, at least depending on the outcome of this debate, that is true. And so I think it's also fair to say that I have been unstinting in my praise of the mover of this proposition. I'm not one of those that were singled out earlier in the debate for having criticised him for bringing the vote of no confidence, and I again echo the remarks of the Deputy of Gruville that certainly he's the best we've had since 2000. I'm not going to go back earlier than that, but he's certainly been a pleasure to work with. He has a refreshing vision for the capital in particular. We're completely aligned when it comes to public realm, transport, the need for more parking in town, and so on. And I do regret the fact that he's no longer the minister. Obviously, keep my options open about who takes over. So I've sat through probably more votes of no confidence than anyone in this chamber, except, I think, Deputy Balash, who was here, of course, when some of us were in short trousers, and actually quite a lot of us weren't born. I think I was at university when he started. Of course, in the days of the committee system, and several members have spoken very nostalgically about the committee system, it was a very different business. If your committee, as a president of a committee, if your committee lost confidence in you, down you went, as happened to me over the buses. And it wasn't nice. Didn't come to a vote of no confidence because my committee simply took me out, by one, resigning. The stakes were much lower in those days because a committee would fall and it would be replaced. And what we have now in ministerial government is things have to be very bad indeed, I think, to bring down the government. And so my question for members really is, are things so very bad that we need a change of government? And I think there are two reasons why we should not be changing horses in midstream. The first is I think it would be unwise. The government has been said by several members, has recently won a convincing majority in setting out its government plan, its plan of work for the next year or more. And that's been adopted by this Assembly. I know things have been said in the Chamber of Commerce and in other forums that might lead members to think this isn't going to happen, but the government is on track to deliver changes that it's been working on. And certainly as the newest member of the Council of Ministers, I'm looking forward to being part of that work. I think it would be unwise to have to reset as the Deputy of Grouville says, to go right back to a new common policy and so on. We're talking about at least 4 months of time wasted, possibly more. Our island, sir, needs continuity and it needs stability. And I think, call this, if you will, a shot across the bows. That's what I think previous votes of no confidence have been called. This is actually quite a big shot across the bows. In fact, I think it's probably landed on the bows and we're busy trying to put the fire out. But I would urge members to allow this vessel to move on. As I've already mentioned, the world is in a particularly difficult situation now. And I think the last thing Jersey needs is to change government over the matters that have been discussed. And the second reason I don't support it is I think a vote of no confidence has to be fair, and I don't believe this is fair. The Chief Minister has explained some of her achievements. Other ministers have also, and I think other ministers are going to speak about theirs. And these are not small things. These are all significant steps that have been taken by ministers. And of course, the Chief Minister has shown humility. She has accepted that she hasn't got everything right. We're not going to get a Chief Minister who does get everything right, but Deputy Moore has, I think, shown humility. And I believe that if she's allowed to get on with the job, she will listen to what's been said in this debate. She'll go carefully over all of the criticisms of her style, her leadership, and she will learn from it, and she will be stronger for it. So what I would encourage members not to follow our sister island down their path, but to, for the sake of the people of Jersey, to keep continuity and stability for the island and to oppose the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Dubé.
Thank you, sir. And like the previous speaker, I'm feeling a little bit deflated, as I think many of us are. And I have been looking back over my nearly 10 years, actually, in this chamber, and there is always criticism levelled at governments. And this is the third Chief Minister that I have worked with as part of the States Assembly. And no government has been perfect. I was a backbencher for the first 2 terms in my role, and I levelled plenty of criticism against previous governments, and I tried to do it in a way that was balanced and allowed for reflections to be made and improvements to be made, because I think it's important to give people that time and that space to actually make those improvements, to have high expectations of them, and to have some faith that they will improve. Because so what I have seen from the current government, and especially from the Chief Minister, is a willingness to improve and to reflect. And I was really interested in listening to the Constable of St Helier, and I want to echo what he said. I have absolute confidence in the Chief Minister, full stop. But I also have confidence that she will be listening to this. I think she's taking it very, very seriously, and that she will be going to reflect on the criticisms that have been levelled at her. She is somebody who listens. And this government, as a whole, is the most diverse and the most progressive government that I have seen in my time as a States member. And I'm proud to be a part of it. It's not perfect, and we will continue striving to be better, but I'm proud to be a part of it. I wanted to reflect on the social context, which the Constable of St Helier stole part of my speech there. And we cannot forget that the world that we are living in at the moment, post-COVID, there are wars, there's inequality, high cost of living. Of course, the public are experiencing discontent. And I completely empathise with that. And the times when I have been in the Council of Ministers meetings, it's taken very, very seriously. And the impression that I get is of this deep concern for the lives that people are living and how to make those lives better. I've seen that and I've heard that from the Council of Ministers. And much of our work, sir, and much of the work of the ministers has been running to stand still and trying to prevent things collapsing, trying to keep services being delivered at an acceptable level in the face of rising costs and extreme difficulties in finding staff. These difficulties cannot be underestimated, and I see this government actually meeting those challenges really well. And I've watched those ministers, with the support and the leadership from the Chief Minister, really doing their best to achieve this, but not just achieving maintaining public services, but also seeing some driving through some significant improvements. And actually, I want to echo what Deputy Stevenson said about the Health Minister. Now, previous health ministers, and this is a point that I will come to later about disagreeing with people, but still being able to work with them. Previous health minister, I got on very well with him. We had very different political backgrounds and aims. And we did often disagree. And one of the key areas that I was trying to drive through, I wanted him to support, was breastfeeding support, because the benefits of breastfeeding are well documented in research and impact across a myriad of health areas across the lifespan. Okay, so members will know that's one of my passions. And I had a very hard time getting the previous health minister to support me with that and to put funding in for it. This new health minister, the conversations I had with her when she came into post, not only did she understand the need for investment in this area, but she made it happen straight away. And she's doing some excellent work with the Women's Health Group. Again, that was something that several of us had on our manifestos because we heard what the public were saying. And this health minister is driving that forwards. I have confidence in her. I'll just take some water there. Working for and with Deputy Gardner and Deputy Miles and for the Chief Minister has been challenging and rewarding, because I think we have very high expectations of ourselves and of each other, and we hold each other to that. I won't repeat the list of what has been delivered by our ministerial team in SIPES, sir, and the Home Affairs Minister, I believe, is yet to speak. But I do want to add some further points there about what has been delivered in SIPES. And one of the biggest achievements that I'm really proud of, and this Assembly should be really proud of, and something that we did take a collegiate approach to and we worked together on, was that children's rights are now indirectly incorporated in our legislation. That is huge for children, and it might not be a tangible impact that you can see, but in terms of culture change over time, that is absolutely massive, and it's something that our children will feel the benefits of for years to come. In terms of investment in early years, we've more than doubled our targeted 2 to 3-year-old offer that supports the most vulnerable 2-year-olds with nursery places, and we're looking to do more there. We've introduced grants to childminders, we've increased the nursery education funding rate to nurseries, plus offered an additional grant to help with increased costs and to keep nurseries open. We have listened to the Jersey Youth Parliament, who delivered us a paper at the beginning of this term asking for an improved PSHE curriculum. That curriculum has been finalised and is going into schools, and it contains every single thing that the Youth Parliament asked for. We're working on a play strategy, and I'm really enjoying working on that strategy with Deputy Stevenson, and resources will be going into that to implement the strategy. There are things that are nearing completion that I really want to keep working on. I've recently lodged a law which will, if it's approved, deliver equal rights to same-sex parents. And I cannot underestimate how many years, sir, I have been trying to drive that change forward as a backbencher and now in government. We need to press on with this. It's a massive piece of legislation, and there are families waiting for it to be in place. The Home Affairs Minister is yet to speak, but in terms of some of the key areas of work that I'm really enjoying working on with her, there's a whole new area that's been created in terms of the equalities portfolio, and it's taken a while to establish that brand new area. And we have seen the publication of the Vorg report. We met last week as part of a series of meetings to work out which are the most impactful recommendations out of the nearly 100 recommendations in that report. It's a huge amount of work to be done there. We want to carry on doing that work. It's supported by the Chief Minister. I think that goes without saying. That kind of work has not only not been supported by previous Chief Ministers, But I just don't think that report would have happened under a different chief minister. One of the things that I am proud of in terms of our equalities work is that we have a new process in place where all officers will be assessing new policies through the lens of equality, diversity and inclusion. And that's something that we've learnt since COVID, when as a backbencher, some of the criticisms I levelled at the previous government was that there wasn't enough thinking about different areas of our community and people with different personal characteristics. And this government is doing that. We've reflected and we are taking action. And that is the way that we are now working. I'll stop there, sir, with the list of achievements. But I think something I've reflected on is that actually we're not communicating well enough about what we're doing. And I think part of that is because we're just so busy doing it. Personally, I haven't had time to post on social media as much as I used to as a backbencher. And it's not because I'm choosing not to. It's simply because I've got my head down doing the work. And I see that around government as well. I think, especially with my kind of assistant ministerial colleagues, sometimes when we see each other, we say, oh, we haven't had time to have a proper catch-up. It's because we are so busy and so determined doing the work that the public have mandated us to do. And I think we would all really like to carry on doing that work. I'll go back to the Chief Minister, sir. I'm really struggling to understand what she's actually done that is so terrible. I would like to keep this Chief Minister. And the main reason I would like to keep this Chief Minister, actually, and I will go back to something that she started as I think she was Home Affairs Minister at the time. And there was something called the 1001 Days Initiative, which I can see Deputy Miles nodding away because in a previous role, she was absolutely pivotal in delivering some of those changes. And those of you who were perhaps in the first term that I was in this chamber, I mean, like Deputy Gorst, certainly as Chief Minister at the time, I think maybe it wasn't his idea, but he listened and he took it on, and that was Deputy Moore who was driving that. Deputy Moore understands the importance of early years. She understands the importance of investing in education. I think we have forgotten in previous governments these things were not priorities. In one of my previous roles, I had to fight a previous education minister to receive some additional money I was trying to put into his budget. That kind of thing isn't happening with this government. We have it so much better than we've had in the past. The one thing that I think we do, all of us need to reflect on, and government, backbenchers, all of us, is that we need to learn how to disagree better. And I think I've said this before, sir. It starts with respect. And it also starts with the discussions that we have in this chamber and in meeting rooms and the disagreements that we have in those places should stay there. When we leave the chamber, we should be able to be civil with each other and understanding with each other. This role is a really tricky one. We have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. I firmly believe that we are all trying to do our best. We might have different ways of doing things, but I respect every single member of this assembly, and I believe that everybody is just trying to do their best for the public that they represent. And I think the reflection that I'm going to take, and the reflection that I really hope we can all take, is to disagree better. And I think this is actually something that the Chief Minister does really well. I've disagreed with her in the past. When she was Home Affairs Minister, I was the chair of the Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. We had many disagreements, but we have always been able to resolve that. And that is the key. Sometimes you have to agree to disagree, sometimes you find a middle way. That's the approach I like to take. I think there's always a middle way. But the Chief Minister knows how to disagree. And she was criticised today, I think, perhaps for not sacking Deputy Binet. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think she was trying to be conciliatory and she was trying to continue to work with somebody who disagreed with her. I actually think that's an admirable quality. So please, members, sir, I'm imploring members not to vote for this vote of no confidence. You do not have to have complete confidence in the Chief Minister. It's okay to raise some criticisms, which the Chief Minister will reflect on. But I think it's very hard to say that we have absolutely no confidence. That's what the vote is. It's, do you have absolutely no confidence in this Chief Minister? And I don't think, honestly, any of us, perhaps bar maybe 4 or 5 people, I don't think we could say that we have no confidence. I do have confidence in this Chief Minister. I have confidence that she will continue to support my work in early years, which will continue to provide improvements for families and many other areas, and I would like to see her continue in the role.
Deputy Jean.
Thank you, sir. How disappointing that we find ourselves here today at a juncture where the pressing issues that demand our collective attention are overshadowed by discord and disarray. Jersey, our home, faces complex challenges that demand our united focus and collaborative efforts, yet our collective gaze seems fixated on internal conflicts, personalities and power dynamics. As representatives entrusted with the well-being of our community, it is disheartening to witness the continuation of infighting, backstabbing, disrespect, patronage and backroom deals within our ranks. This not only tarnishes the essence of democracy, but also falls short of the responsibilities we bear as stewards of the people's interests. Our constituents look to us for guidance, stability and effective governance. Let us remember that the decisions we make in this chamber reverberate beyond these walls and have tangible effects on the lives of the people we serve. Focus should be on policy discussions, effective governance and collaborative problem solving, rather than personal animosities, political theatrics and divisive strategies. Which brings me to my own recent experience and one that needs to be addressed in this debate as it has been used as an example in the proposition. The Chief Minister has apologised to me on how she handled her reaction to the Les Sablons decision, and I have accepted it. As a newcomer to Jersey politics, the situation was challenging, and it wasn't the leadership example I had expected. I, however, recognise the Chief Minister's difficult position and the challenges inherent in her role. While recognising individual differences, our primary duty is to serve the people of Jersey, and I believe there has been positive progress made by the different ministers. Therefore, I'm voting against the vote of no confidence, prioritising the larger mission over personal politics. Sir, I empathise with Deputy Moore's situation, as I too face a narrative that doesn't accurately represent my contributions and capabilities. Narratives wield significant power in shaping public opinion and political discourse, and it is important to be in control. Unfortunately, my narrative recently has been dictated by others through a distorted lens that perpetuates stereotypes and bias, and I want to take back control here and now. How disappointing that I was labelled as inexperienced and technically unequipped by senior members of this Assembly. Such characterisations overlook the diverse skills, perspectives and dedication that each member brings to the table, revealing more about the character of those attempting to discredit. Though relatively new to Jersey politics, I bring 20 years of experience in global political arenas, engaging with the European Union, United Nations and World Bank member states. One of my proudest achievements was kick-starting a campaign that eventually led to the UN Security Council's recognition of the crucial role of youth in peace negotiations after conflicts, resulting in the historic resolution 2250 in 2015. In another significant role, I served as a lobbyist for a business association representing the interests of over 1.7 million smallholder farmers and workers from Africa, Asia and Latin America, along with over 400 SMEs and national business associations from 75 countries and 90 members comprising of import trading organisations, manufacturing and retail outlets across 17 European countries. My responsibilities included negotiating and influencing the European Union on critical issues like the Common Agricultural Policy, development finance and unfair trading practices, I played an active role in influencing trade agreements and making sure grants were available to support SMEs and smallholder farmers in accessing the EU single market. Importantly, despite the diversity impact of these roles, accusations of inexperience were never levelled against me. I share this not to assert my credentials, but to underline the importance of recognising the wealth of experiences and perspectives that each member brings to this assembly. We all contribute unique insights shaped by our diverse backgrounds, and it is this diversity that enriches our deliberations and decisions. Specifically addressing my decision around Les Sablons, I acted in good faith, following the process laid out in the Planning and Building Law 2002. And I continue to stand by my decision, a decision that was based on a careful and thorough examination of the inspector's report and the planning issues involved. I distanced myself from the final decision due to the focus shifting to me rather than the application's merits. Circumstances beyond my control meant any decision I made would likely overshadow the planning issues. But it is critical for Jersey to uphold the integrity and independence of the planning decision-making process, emphasised in yesterday's JEP's editorial. That is why I hope that the Minister of the Environment can continue to implement the McKinnon report's recommendations in full and collaborate with stakeholders for further improvements. Sir, during the Chief Minister's vote in July 2022, I emphasised the need for transformational leadership in these challenging times, particularly seeking a truly inclusive leader. My question asked the candidates to give examples of work they had done in the past that exemplifies this type of leadership and how they would ensure that disenfranchised voices are heard in our society. This question remains crucial in today's debate, not only in considering what kind of Chief Minister we want, but also how we should all lead. Inclusive leadership entails creating a culture of collaboration, empathy, inclusive decision-making, equitable practices, transparent communication, fair constructive feedback, respectful conflict resolution, continuous learning, and the courage to advocate for positive change. I consistently emphasise these principles in my discussions with the Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers, viewing them as a foundation for effective leadership, and I have done this consistently since I've become Assistant Minister 18 months ago. Sir, I've been reading Rory Stewart's book, Politics on the Edge, recently, in my little spare time in the early hours of the mornings, and certain lines have resonated with me as I contemplated the VONC. Rory sought the counsel of a senior Canadian politician about entering politics, receiving a profound response. Nothing requires so much of you. Politics demands more of your mind, of your soul, of your emotions than anything else on earth. Sir, I can confirm the truth in this statement. Politics demands a profound commitment of one's intellect, spirit, and emotions, because politics is a complex negotiation of competing interests. It's a complex dance involving human beings and society, an experience we all have to grapple with, and therefore warrants mutual respect for each other's approaches in dealing with these complexities. Sir, a vote of no confidence is a powerful tool in a democratic system, and it should be exercised responsibly and with a clear understanding of its implications. It is a decision that will shape the course of governance and influence the direction of Jersey. Therefore, my decision around this VONC has not been made lightly. It is rooted in a deep consideration of the current political and economic climate, the consequences of such a vote, and the broad implications for our island. I have asked myself what the political alternatives and solutions are, if a change in leadership would likely bring about positive change, and looked at the issues that led to this motion. And I believe through this experience, the Chief Minister and the Ministers, the Council of Ministers, can collectively learn and enhance their abilities for the betterment of our community. And therefore I will support the Chief Minister as she leads a robust, collaborative and diverse Council of Ministers, and again reiterate that I will vote against the VONC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition? Conatapis and Bernard.
Thank you, sir. These things never work when you want them to. rights. So I find myself, as I'm sure, as do other members, uncomfortable having to debate a proposition of this nature. This is, I think, has been a consistent theme with many speeches. A jurisdiction of our size dictates there has to be consensual government, and this needs to apply, in my view, at the Council of Ministers table as well as behind the scenes. Whilst I have attended some Council of Ministers meetings in my role as chair of the Comité de Connétable, I can only say that they've been relatively harmonious. So I have to presume that the dissent alluded to by others has taken place in other places, in other rooms. It does appear, sir, that something is rotten in the state of Denmark, if I may quote from Shakespeare. That said, sir, and having dug deeper as a result of this proposition, it seems to me that the present problems have been created by some of the Chief Minister's acolytes in her council for which she carries responsibility. It's unfortunate that there are so many on the Council of Ministers that have never been members of scrutiny. That, sir, is where states members need to cut their teeth, in my opinion, and learn how politics works in Jersey. It is nice to operate a government in a consensual manner, but the reality is that for it to work with the large variety of personalities presently involved, it may be better if we had a hard-nosed managing director in place. This would translate, sir, into making firm decisions, which is what I perceive the public want. The government of Jersey is not unlike a PLC and indeed has been referred to as such in the past. It's not a term I favour, but in reality there are similarities which we shouldn't overlook, whilst being cognizant that this is a community of people and we mustn't forget that. I speak, sir, alluding to the future hospital plans in mind, where we've heard that there have been suggestions once again of changes of direction as to which bit should go where. This does concern me, and we've experienced so many changes to date at enormous cost, and the public greatly exercised, I think is the best way of describing that, the exercise by the direction in which this is suggested it might go again. We all know, sir, that changes of mind in large projects will inevitably be expensive, and the creation of a very expensive advisory board also concerns me, and certainly the public in general. The departure, sir, of the former chief executive was a surprise, with the reasons being somewhat opaque, and this will inevitably give rise to public concern. So, sir, how should I be voting on this proposition? I took the view that I should invoke part of the 1771 code. Yes, sir, I'm a bit older than a lot of other members, but it's a bit before my time, but it does say in its preamble in English that any proposition shall be lodged au greffe for 14 days at least before it shall be determined, in order that every individual of the states may have full time to consider thereof, and the constables to consult their constituents if they judge necessary. We, of course, had no deputies in those days, sir. I have, sir, judged that a consultation with my parishioners was necessary given the mixed messages I've received. I therefore took it upon myself to use modern technology in the guise of social media and invite opinion from my parishioners as to whether I should support the vote of no confidence or not. The response was far greater than I had anticipated, with numerous well-considered emails, messages, phone calls and personal visits giving mature reasoning and justification why I should support this proposition. Many of the respondents indicated that they had previously supported the Chief Minister, but felt that her leadership fell short of what the island needed at this time. The clear message to me, sir, was that the Council of Ministers wasn't reading the room and that their performance was disappointing. We've seen some what I might describe as catastrophic choices of direction, namely the teacher pay issue, a tree preservation strategy, Jersey Reds, uncontrolled travel costs, a broken planning system, etc., etc. Personally, I would want to see the government focus on revenue generation to support the budgetary needs of our island. It's massively underfunded, and strong, experienced business leadership is needed. The public, sir, I believe, want Jersey to be a stable, prosperous and beautiful island. And whilst I suggest we all aspire to that mantra, it needs to be asserted by action. And it's not clear that is happening. We've gained an elaborate, well-staffed communications department, and we have some 4, I think, former journalists in the council. So whilst messaging is professional, the content is short of what the public want. So given this weight of representation and having taken the temperature of my parishioners and indeed others in the island, I feel that I have no option, but sadly, and I say that genuinely, because I've worked with and respect the Chief Minister as an extremely hard-working person. But I have to cast my vote in favour of the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. I want to give my perspective on a number of points that have been raised in the debate today and also the accompanying report. And I want to reiterate at the outset, like some of my colleagues have said, that this vote should be about policies and outcomes and not personalities. Good leadership comes in many forms. We don't always recognise it when we see it, but it's very easy to suggest that it's absent when things do not go our way or when we disagree with particular decisions. And that is what I consider to be the foundation of the proposition that we are debating today. This proposition puts forward a view that I do not share. It suggests that qualities of selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness and honesty are absent. The proposition also questions whether we have an organisation that serves the public. And rather than dwell on the negative, like the Connétable of St Helier, I'd like to, like the Connétable of St Helier said, I'd like to address what I've been able to achieve for the public as a member of council, under the leadership of the Chief Minister. As a result of working collaboratively with Council, I've been able to deliver a number of my priorities for the public, and so prioritise because they make a positive difference to the citizens of Jersey. And despite leading investigations into terrible tragedies, my ministry has delivered a number of positive changes. We've implemented the carte d'identité changes, brave and courageous decision in the face of some objections. We've secured funding for the emergency services. We've secured support for capital projects. We've made changes to our work permit policy to support our economy, cultural change in our prison service. Importantly, we've delivered a domestic abuse law and taken significant measures to tackle violence against women and girls in Jersey. We're building a sexual assault referral centre. We're refreshing the Building a Safer Community framework. None of these would have been possible without the support of a team of dedicated, supportive ministers who facilitate good decision-making, who challenge and support in equal measure. Ministers who share the same values, and most of whom are able to collaborate effectively and compromise if necessary to deliver outcomes to islanders. But in particular, I wanted to address some of the criticisms in the report that have been levelled at my colleagues, individual ministers. These are personal in nature and not based on evidence of delivery. The report on this proposition, ma'am, suggests that the Chief Minister's strong, unwavering support for the Health Minister is shameful. If that is the case, then I too must be guilty of shameful behaviour. This is not the woman that I recognise. I've worked closely with the Health Minister, and I simply do not recognise this portrayal. Since day one, as Deputy Stevenson noted, the Minister has been subject to criticism and negativity. I'm totally confused by this. Deputy Wilson is the only person in this Assembly who has senior leadership experience at board level in a large health service. She has run NHS trusts, contributed to the building of hospitals, and has over 30 years' experience locally and in the UK. Why would the Chief Minister not support a minister who is successful at delivering a complex portfolio of projects and achieving her outcomes? I prefer to take account of outcomes and not personalities. And if we look at actual outcomes, the picture is very different to what is being suggested. In St Brelard, the Enid Kenno Centre outpatient centre is a huge success. There's been reduced waiting times for MRIs, which has improved patient experience. Change of the leadership team in HCS, no mean feat, and some courageous decisions there. She's ensured that the turnaround team have reversed the decline across the service, financially moving it in a better direction. A completed maternity service review that gives confidence to expectant parents. The list could be much longer. The report suggests that the Health Minister has committed errors of judgment and is an inappropriate minister. Again, my experience of working alongside the Health Minister does not bear this out. I've worked collaboratively with her to develop policy in very tricky and contentious areas. We've delivered improvements in safeguarding practices. We're reviewing cannabis policy. We've worked together over the assisted dying legislation. We've worked collaboratively to deliver a substance misuse strategy and certainly collaborated on public health reform, quite often in the face of significant opposition. I would assert that the Health Minister is a seasoned decision maker who makes decisions in a manner that is wholly appropriate. She's demonstrated incredible resilience in the face of constant challenge and criticism. And resilience is a quality that every single minister should have. Deputy Howell raised the issue of the Health and Community Services Board, and in particular the role of the interim chair. And I have to say, I am wholly confused by some members' obsession with the role of the eminent professor, whose contract extension, by 4 weeks only, actually resulted in the resignation of a respected connotab. Are we not fortunate to have been able to engage the services of highly respected and renowned experts in the field of health leadership, a person whose skills are in high demand and who has left the island to seek employment elsewhere? I understand from Deputy Barbara Ward that she's actually very impressed by the conduct of the board, and we can see results from that already. It is delivering change. Perhaps in his summing up speech, Deputy Binet can articulate some of the issues more clearly for the benefit of the Assembly. Leadership is hard, sir. Leadership as a woman is especially hard, and I speak from experience. I was a member of the command team in the States of Jersey Police, the only woman and the only civilian. In highly charged environments, women often have to work twice as hard to have their voices heard and their views accepted, and at times this can be soul-destroying. Male leaders tend to appear more assertive and confident, be more competitive, more task-oriented. They often have a higher tolerance for risk and a willingness to make bold decisions. Women display leadership ability in different ways to men. Women are often seen to have strong empathy and emotional intelligence. They're more likely to try to understand and connect with the emotions of others, fostering positive relationships in a less traditional way. Women leaders tend to prioritise collaboration and encourage an inclusive and cooperative workplace where everyone's contributions are heard and valued. And these softer skills can often make people with a more traditional view of leadership feel very frustrated. They perceive that decisions are not made quickly enough, that they're not directive enough, that they're not strong enough. And I think that frustration is what is playing out here. And this is what we've seen around the Council of Ministers table on more than one occasion. Finally, as I said before, Deputy Binay's proposition brings a perspective that I do not share. Votes of this nature should be based upon policies and outcomes and not personalities. As with any team, there are areas of disagreement. A mature team handles those in a collaborative way and is able to compromise. Both Connétable Géant and Deputy Binay chose to resign from the Council rather than try to unite behind a common goal. And I think that is a great shame. In my opinion, this was not in the best interest of Jersey, and the subsequent proposition demonstrates a lack of commitment to islanders. I consider this proposition to be ill-conceived and unnecessary. If successful, it risks setting the government plan agenda, which had overwhelming support in the Assembly by many months, and my colleague Deputy Labby has articulated the actual process that will be gone through and the delays that are likely. It is far more likely to harm than heal our island, and for that reason I urge members to reject this proposition.
Does any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak, then Deputy Balish.
So in Oscar Wilde's play, The Importance of Being Earnest, Lady Bracknell says, to lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. And so it is with ministers. The government has recently lost two, indeed three, very good ministers in the Constable of St John and the Deputies Binet, and both over essentially the same issue, which is the performance of another minister. That does look to me like carelessness. It reflects inevitably on the Chief Minister and the qualities of leadership of which Deputy Binet speak. One of the key issues facing the island, as other members have said, is the development of the hospital, which I think, and I'm sure many members would agree, the former Minister for Infrastructure had done sterling work. With others, he persuaded most members that the huge hospital project was an expensive mistake, and that the way forward was to develop the hospital estate in bite-sized chunks. It is less risky to our financial stability and has many other advantages too. So his departure from the role of Minister for Infrastructure is deeply concerning. It does seem to me, viewed from the outside, that Deputy Binet did not have the support to which he was entitled from the Health Minister. At briefings for States members, I don't remember seeing the Minister there. Deputy Stevenson and indeed Deputy Doublé too spoke of the matters which the Health Minister had dealt with very satisfactorily for them, and I'm sure there are many other good things that the Health Minister has done too. But for me, the charge sheet against her is long. Firstly, we now have a headless health board because the Minister rejected the candidate put forward after an exhaustive recruitment process by the Jersey Appointments Commission, a candidate apparently of the highest quality, and no explanation has been forthcoming. Secondly, after 18 months in office, there is still no strategy for the future of health, the relationship with primary care, and the place of private health in the overall scheme of things. And finally, a mushrooming of cost, indeed a financial situation which until very recently was running completely out of control. But the final straw for me, I think, was the report of the Commissioner for Standards, and the Chief Minister shares some responsibility for these events. On the 21st of February, the day on which the vote of no confidence was lodged, the proposition, Deputy Ward told the Chief Minister that she had been falsely accused. She asked that the Minister's letter be withdrawn, an apology issued, and the issue could then be forgotten. Why was that sensible proposal not taken up? Why did the Chief Minister not raise the issue with the Health Minister? Why was the Health Minister not asked to check her facts and withdraw the accusation if it was indeed false? The Commissioner found that the Health Minister knew or should have known by the 21st of February that she had got it wrong. Yet the rather reluctant apology to Deputy Barbara Ward did not come until the publication of the Commissioner's report in December, 10 months later. In her conclusions, the Commissioner found it, and I quote, unbelievable that there was such a lack of willingness to listen, understand, and put the record straight. A reference to the Commissioner for Standards ought to be the last resort when all else fails. It's a pity that the Chief Minister missed the opportunity to head this off and avoid bringing the states into disrepute. And a pity that the Health Minister needed a ruling from the Commissioner to make her admit that she had made a serious mistake. It shows a stubbornness and refusal to listen, which ironically is the very same accusation levelled against Deputy Binet by the Chief Minister in her recent interview. Deputy Binet is certainly firm in his views, and no doubt sometimes difficult, but not, in my experience, unwilling to listen. Holding the scales between ministers with strong views is not easy, but as between the former Assistant Chief Minister and Infrastructure Minister on the one hand and the Health Minister on the other, I think that the wrong ones have been compelled to leave. Government ministers have spoken of the successes of this government, and no one would deny, I certainly wouldn't deny, that there have been many of them. But there have been serious failures too, which have to be borne in the balance. And I will mention two of them. Other members have mentioned others. First, I don't think that enough has been done to change the culture of secrecy, which is quite pervasive in parts of the public service. It is difficult to judge whether this is a consequence of the reluctance of officialdom to yield up information, or to a willingness of ministers to acquiesce in decisions to keep things under wraps, because it suits them too. But ministers have to accept responsibility. Secondly, the Chief Minister, in my view, has not done enough to reverse the changes which took place under a former Chief Executive, which removed the direct political accountability of civil servants to ministers. Civil servants need to know to which minister they are accountable politically, and indeed vice versa. Some change has happened, but not nearly enough. The infrastructure and planning departments, as another member has mentioned, are still modelled up under a single chief officer. The Cabinet Office is a huge jumble of unclear and sometimes conflicting responsibilities. And the proposal to create an office of the Chief Minister will make matters even worse. No one can serve two masters, is the old biblical injunction, and it's as true today as when it was written in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Political accountability is important because its absence feeds through to a lack of transparency and even to a culture of secrecy. It allows bullying to continue to flourish in certain places. The Chief Minister knows this, and I believe accepts it. So it is disappointing that this particular nut has not been cracked. Where does that leave us? The Constable of St Helier, I think, was right to pose the rhetorical question, are things so bad that we need to change? The Chief Minister has done extremely well in some things which require a gentle personal touch, in particular in relation to the tragedies which have afflicted the island in the last year or so. I think, however, if what the island and the states wants is decisions on the larger and more difficult issues facing both the government and the island, we will not get them from this Chief Minister.
Does any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak, Constable St Peter.
Thank you, sir. I stand up this afternoon perhaps saying something that I had not expected to say. Earlier this afternoon, I resigned my two assistant ministers' positions in order to vote for the vote of no confidence. And it's not a decision I took lightly. I have known the Chief Minister for many, many years. And in fact, my reasons are not really to do with the Chief Minister herself. I will be brief, as the speech I prepared yesterday, of course, is no longer of any use. And also, my handwriting's so bad that I have trouble reading my own notes. So, thank you. Anyway, over the weekend and yesterday, I received numerous calls and emails from parishioners. And as I wrote my speech yesterday evening, I couldn't help but feel I was contradicting their views in that speech. And therefore, I had to recognise what they were telling me and vote in accordance with their views. Matters that they raised were, one of which was the cost of living. And I think what they see is not that the government hasn't done anything about the cost of living. Yes, we have. But certainly in certain areas, there's a lack of compassion, I would say. We recently, the matter of overpayments by Social Security was raised. And yes, I agree, we can't repay every, we can't write off every single overpayment. However, I have seen the effects of deductions from people's benefits, and I think it is appalling in some cases. I, in fact, was speaking to some of my colleagues earlier about one particular case and the hardship that this person has had to endure and their personal circumstances, which I can't go into, but how we have not shown compassion. I did refer the matter through the Minister, in fact, and what has happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing since before Christmas. Since then, the parish, and you will recall that actually the parish's responsibility for, aid was removed some years ago. However, we increasingly find ourselves filling that gap that the social security system does not fill, and it should do. I'm sorry to have to say this, but that was one of the matters raised. A lack of understanding about the cost of living crisis. Another matter that was raised is the lack of progress with regard to the land in the parish which was rezoned under the island plan, which will be a source of 3- and 4-bedroom family homes, of which there is a shortage. And I believe that there are very few that are available for rental at the moment. And yet there has been little or no progress. And I'm sure in a later speech we'll no doubt hear, I will refer to them as excuses as why there has been no progress. Because at the moment, developers can't submit plans, they don't know the density that's required, and various other matters have not been made clear. People are frustrated who were looking forward to seeing the possibility of some houses being built during the term of this government, which I now think is highly unlikely. In addition to that, of course, we have the infrastructure problems with drainage. At least we have a plan for that. But why is it that we can't even get any of those sites to the planning stage? Whilst we've made no progress on the land rezoned under the Island Plan, we seem to have spent an awful lot of time on something that we'll all be familiar with, the tree law, which in rural parishes, I have to say, is a law that nobody wishes to see, and which some landowners see as an insult. After the 1987 storm, our landowners, without any intervention from the government, went about replanting trees, and by the time of our latest storm, everything had been restored. They didn't need anybody to guide them. The fact that now, in order to deal with a few, and there were relatively few incidents of trees being removed, we introduce a law that impacts virtually anybody who has a garden with a tree in it. And I think that is absurd. Absolutely absurd. So we can't get round to rezoning land for houses, but we can introduce a law about trees. And yes, we do need to preserve trees, but there are better ways of doing it. I plant many trees myself, so do many other people. But a law of that nature was totally unnecessary. And the final thing that was brought up, amongst others, was the very slow development of the hospital. I think that was inevitable. It's not just this government, we'd have a series of plans. Nevertheless, we have sort of appeared to have stalled on that, and I do understand the problems. And having listened to all these, as I say, I felt that I had no option but to resign my positions and support the vote of no confidence. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Miller.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling disappointed that we're having this debate today, nor indeed by some of the things that have been said during it. I will be voting against the proposition. I support the Chief Minister, but I also have confidence in her Council of Ministers. We have together achieved a great deal since 2022. We have all produced carefully considered ministerial plans, and I have no doubt that we all want to continue delivering on those plans to make a difference to our community. For my part, I am very proud of some of the things that we have delivered within my social security portfolio. And I have to say that I can only be bemused by Deputy Mezek's description of our benefit system as just giving out free money, particularly when his party have brought proposition after proposition to increase the amount of free money that we give out. So just to cover some of the things we've done. In 2022, we've talked about this already, we agreed a mini budget to help islanders with the cost of living crisis, bearing in mind the Chief Minister's key focus on cost of living. That included reductions in social security contributions, doubling the community cost bonus, doubling and guaranteeing the winter fuel payments regardless of temperatures. We also provided support for families with under 5 years residency in the island. With the continuing focus on the cost of living, we have continued that work this year, maintaining the community cost bonus at the doubled amount and repeating the increased and guaranteed £70 winter fuel payments. Over the term, we have made at least inflationary increases to income support components and have increased long-term care rates. We have increased the eligibility for the Pension Plus benefit to bring more people within its scope and have enhanced the benefits payable under that scheme. But the thing that I am actually most proud of, because it is something that my predecessors have not addressed, I believe, is that we have reduced the cost of a GP visit for adults by £20. Every person in this assembly will benefit from that. We've also developed a significant package of investment to improve and modernise community pharmacy, which will also help reduce and facilitate the cost of medical care for islanders. Deputy Ferry has spoken about the minimum wage increase, which is now over 26%, and our minimum wage is 58% of the median wage against a target of 66%. That is very good progress. I'm hoping later this week to make some announcements on the Health Access Scheme. And over the last 18 months, my team and I have been developing a secondary pension scheme which will enable islanders to save long-term for their own pensions. The public have told us very clearly through the Jersey Opinions and Lifestyle Survey that that is something they want. My plan is to do further work this year in collaboration with the pensions industry, islanders and businesses to finalise the details of the scheme with a view to a new scheme being rolled out, I hope, around the end of 2025. My fellow ministers have each achieved a great deal, but there is more we all want to do. If this proposition is successful, it will delay the work of government for weeks, if not months, and that assumes that a new Chief Minister and Council of Ministers has the same view of what is important for our island and what our priorities should be. I very much doubt that those priorities will be different. I'm sure we are all actually trying to achieve the same end. This proposition is critical of not only the Chief Minister, but also the Health Minister. I don't know who I speak to, but I am not bombarded every day with people telling me how awful a place Jersey is to live. Many of the people I know and who talk to me are happy in Jersey, and they do have a good quality of life, and that Jersey is a good place to live for many of us. And I absolutely accept that is not true across the board, and we continue to try to address that. But it is clear to me from discussions with the public that what people really want and what they are concerned about is that they have a really good health service. Not a world-beating, not a global standard, just a good, reliable health service. Some of them feel that they have not received the standard of care they expect. I have been told several stories about people who feel they've been failed by the care they've received. That's going back over a few years. The Minister for Health has done a huge amount of work to establish a well-governed health service for Jersey that provides a safe, reliable, patient-centred care with a budget we can afford into the future. It's an exceptionally complex area. Surely we all understand that. We are often told by critics that the culture in health is poor, but at the same time, those same critics are resistant to the changes that are needed to make a difference. The same goes for costs. People don't like the costs involved in running the health service, but equally, they don't like the Minister's initiatives to try to reduce those same costs. We cannot have our cake and eat it. And everyone, it seems, regardless of their own knowledge, skills and experience, thinks they know better how to run a health service. A number of people today have spoke critically about the health service. They are all capable, experienced, intelligent people, but I'm not aware that any of them have any experience in running a hospital. The only person who has that is our Health Minister. Addressing the problem by turning the clock back to the way it used to be in the 70s, when consultants ruled the roost and it was acceptable to make nurses cry, is not the answer. We have to deal with the world as it is now and the world as it is going to be in the future. We've all seen the demographic graphs. We know what to expect. We know the cost. The world is not the same now as it was in the 70s or the 80s. To quote a famous quote, the past is another country. They do things differently there. We are in this country now and we must respond to its challenges. Jersey is never going to go back to what it was in the 70s, whether that's tourism or financial services or anything else. The world is a different place, as is Jersey, and we have to respond to that. Others have spoken about the Health Minister, and I will say only this. I am in awe every day of her strength of character, resilience and determination to make our health service one of which we can all be proud and confident. And so to the Chief Minister. We've heard quite a number of things today about the ministerial system of government. That is not of her making. I'm not sure when it came in, but again, many people speak about the committee system with very rose-tinted spectacles. I don't remember it. Probably wasn't paying much attention to it then. But what I do know is that for all the supporters of the committee system, there are many others who will say it was like wading through treacle. It was slow, it took lots of time, and it was difficult to achieve anything. So be careful what you wish for. And again, please, can we just stop looking over our shoulder the whole time? And again, I don't necessarily agree with everything that the Constable of St Martin said. But the public want us, as is very clear, they want us to get on and do things to help the island. They want us to stop messing about and talking about what is happening and procedures within this assembly. And I don't agree. I don't care how many propositions are on the table. The public is never going to not raise an eyebrow at a proposition about amending the roll call. The Chief Minister, it seems to me, is being criticised for, among other reasons, for loyalty and for supporting one of her ministers. What type of government would we have if the Chief Minister did not support her own ministers? Are we really saying, as it might appear in some quarters, that loyalty has no value in the world of politics? We've all seen some absolutely disgraceful behaviour in Westminster. Is that what we want to happen here? Do we want to be that same place? And as for the suggestion that the Chief Minister should take advice from people who are not subject matter experts, how long do you think it's going to be? How long will it be before she's criticised for that? I'm particularly troubled, and I really hesitate to open this. I'm particularly troubled by the statements that the letter that was sent to teachers at the end of last week will have affected the view of members as to the outcome of this debate. I had not intended to discuss the content of that letter, but I now feel, because Deputy Mezek has discussed it, I do have to make some comments, because it's not the content that I want to focus on. Deputy Mezek talks about the letter being leaked. It is impossible to say that a letter that has been sent to almost 1,000 people is a secret. We had to send the letter directly to teachers. It would not have been appropriate to put out a press release about what we're going to do. It was entirely right that teachers had to hear about the said proposal directly to their own inboxes, to their own mailboxes. If they then chose to share that letter, that's not leaking. That is not the government. It's not the government view. It's not the SEB view. It was not a secret. So the word leaking is inappropriate. I find it surprising that some members of the Assembly, who are themselves members of the union and who've been union officials and representatives, seem to be suggesting, I may be misquoting or misinterpreting them, that the SEB should ignore the outcome of a collective bargaining process and deny the rights of the 800 members of the NASUWT to receive a pay rise which they have voted on in their ballot to accept. There is no attempt by the SEB to divide the teachers. They are in effect divided by virtue of the outcome of their own ballots, with one unit having accepted the offer and the other rejecting it. There is no ultimatum, none at all. There is no secret database. Government is not collecting data on trade union membership. Nobody has to tell government whether they're a member of a union. We are simply saying we are respecting the rights of those who rejected the union to tell us that they do not want to receive the pay rise that others have accepted. And as for the notion that there is some kind of extra bargaining power, that there's some kind of secret thing that didn't happen before, the offer that was made to the teaching unions was for a 3-year deal. And if you accept a 3-year deal, it is not unreasonable to expect that you will not take strike action over pay during that 3-year period. It doesn't stop them taking industrial action over anything else, but if you've accepted a 3-year deal, then it would not be appropriate to then take action if you decide halfway through that you don't like the deal, you've changed your mind. The SAB is trying to find a reasonable way to respect the outcome of the NASUWT ballot and the outcome of the NEU ballot. It's a very complicated position. What should we do? De-recognise one of the unions to make life easier? Refuse to recognise our obligations in respect of the NASUWT ballot and its 800 members until the NEU have reached a settlement? Neither of those would be at all appropriate. SAB has to find a way through this, and we are trying to do it. And as the Education Minister mentioned earlier, this is not just about pay. We are continuing very successful work on teaching workload, recruitment and retention, and terms and conditions. A huge amount of work is going into that, and we are trying very hard to find solutions. But the point I really want to make about that letter, and this is a really important point, is about timing. The letter was approved by the 5 members of the State's Employment Board, of which the Chief Minister is one. Another Chief Minister may have tried to delay the issue of that letter until after this debate and deal with any criticism once she knew she was safe. There was, in fact, that question was raised, not by the Chief Minister, not by a minister, but by someone else, as to whether the letter should wait until after the outcome of the VONC of this debate. Our Chief Minister chose not to delay that letter. She agreed that this was action that should be taken urgently to try to resolve the pay negotiations so far as we can, notwithstanding this proposition and the impact it may have on her own position. In doing so, she has displayed enormous bravery, integrity, and an overriding commitment to the education of our children and our community. That was a highly principled decision by the Chief Minister. And I, for one, regardless of what you think...
That's your time.
Sorry.
Does any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak, Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Trying to find my place in my many, many notes. Sir, apologies, sir. To bring down a government after just 18 months, because of and when I read the report and when I hear the arguments, I still can't see much more than personality, rumour, hearsay, and, as Deputy Miller mentioned, unrelated arguments, such as the structure of the system of government, which is something that Chief Minister cannot and never will have power over or control over. That is the preserve of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. To bring down a government on such evidence reflects incredibly badly, in my opinion, on this Assembly. To bring down a government when members such as the Chair of PPC have, in my opinion, blamed the Chief Minister for matters which are very much in their own purview, in their own area of responsibility, is incredibly sad. But to bring down the government after just 18 months on such flimsy, one-sided evidence isn't just sad, but I believe it is dangerous, because it will condemn this island, the island that I know we all love, to instability and inaction for months to come. So rather than helping and collaborating within a system that actually, I agree, makes it hard to do so, those supporting this proposition are, in my view, eschewing their duty in favour of throwing stones and creating destruction, instead of helping to find ways to work constructively together. Sir, as Deputy Chief Minister, I do take my share of responsibility for those areas where I haven't been seen to collaborate enough.
but I also know that I have invited non-executive members of the Assembly to work on various projects with me. I've also focused enormously on building bridges between government and industry as Economic Development Minister. Each sector strategy that has been published in response to the sectors themselves calling for those strategies in that direction. Each of those strategies has been published and was written in collaboration with the sectors in question, often after a concerted effort to encourage collaboration within the sectors themselves, among business leaders who previously didn't always get along very well or speak very often together. That's a badge of pride for me, sir. And indeed, I will take to my grave the comment made to me a few months ago by another member of this Assembly, who congratulated me on being the first person to get farmers, fishermen, and government, not just around the same table, but coming to an agreement. But I didn't do it alone. I did it with other members of this Assembly. But, sir, what really concerns me is that whilst this proposition is about confidence in the Chief Minister, none of her detractors have recognised just how dedicated she is and just how well she deals with the bricks and stones that are thrown at her on a daily basis. I've been proud to serve with this key Chief Minister. I have been and will continue to be impressed by the way she represents our island abroad. I'm not sure any other of the Assembly members would receive ambassadors, consuls, or other ministers or politicians as well as she does. I don't know if other states members have the same level of stoicism in the face of, in my opinion, unfair criticism from within her own ministerial team. That stoicism has been unbelievably impressive and something I continually learn from. Deputy Moore isn't just on her Chief Minister's brief. She's aware and across all of our briefs. She has empowered and trusted her ministers in a way that has seen this government deliver across the board. You've heard a great deal of this today. And they've delivered across the board at a rate that dwarfs other governments before us. Sir, if Jersey is plunged into a struggle to create a new government, the only winners will be the media. All other islanders will lose out as they are forced to wait for a new common strategic policy, to wait for new ministers to build new relationships with civil servants, for new ministers to learn the ways of working of government, and to create new policies and reallocate spending. The Chief Minister has had the strength and vision to embrace the need for change. And it is my estimation that this courage has actually led to this call for a vote of confidence. She knows.
If you pause for a moment, Deputy, is this a voluntary contribution to the Greffiers Fund?
It is, sir.
Thank you very much. Please do.
Thank you. Sir, the CM has had the strength and vision to embrace the need for change. And it is my estimation that this courage has actually led to this call for a vote of confidence. She knows that Jersey faces enormous challenges, such as unsafe practices in areas of the health service, and she has empowered the Health Minister to deal with these. The backlash that has followed has come from those with, I believe, vested interest in the status quo. But undeterred, the Chief Minister and the Health Minister place safety before their own political considerations. That is courage. That is someone who puts the island first. That is a leader, and it breaks my heart that so many other members choose to listen to the voices of stagnation and the easy way forward. Making difficult decisions and choices, backing her ministers, even those who acted against her because she believed they have the talent and the ability to deliver on their briefs, has been the trademark and the hallmark of this Chief Minister. Sir, I ask states members to do exactly as she does, which is to put the island first. The elections are where we throw people out. The people throw people out of this Assembly. The people, during the election, call for new government. That is the way of the democratic process. It is not to give people 18 months, and in the middle, just as things are getting hard, just as things are difficult, just as change is being made, to say, no, we're going to stop you in your tracks, and we're going to condemn the island to months of confusion, instability, and inaction. Sir, I certainly will be voting to support the Chief Minister in this vote of confidence. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak. And members will recall, when I say the words, I close the debate, then the debate is closed. Yes, well, I saw your light first, Deputy Wilson, so, and then Deputy Reniff thereafter.
So I should have come into this assembly today with a coat of armour. And I did consider asking if it would be possible to have the brace or the mace by my side in case I needed to ward off any more attack. This proposition does not serve the interest of islanders for the good. It is entirely driven by the fact that Deputy Binney just does not like the fact that there are some people in the council he would prefer not to be there. If I may say so, sir, good and honest men are not the only ones to occupy the higher moral ground, or the only ones who know how to do things. Deputy Binney talks about his problematic engagement with me over the new healthcare facilities, but it goes back further than that. Since being elected, he has been on a campaign to undermine my work in the health service. It is astonishing that he has taken no responsibility whatsoever for the part he has played in the allegations laid at the door of myself and the Chief Minister. It takes two to tango, and he has led the dance. Against this background, and with lack of support from my Assistant Minister, his sister, Deputy Rose Binney, I have, however, continued to deliver on my ministerial responsibilities amidst the hypocritical venting that has gone on and in the presence of some very unpleasant behaviours witnessed by many, as the Assembly has heard this afternoon. But I'm not going to reduce myself to engage in personal attack. It may be his style, but it's certainly not mine, and I rise above it. People in this Assembly know me. They know what my values are, how I conduct myself, and what I'm responsible for. This government inherited a declining health service characterised by years and years of underfunding, significant staffing and recruitment problems, unmanaged clinical risk and poor governance. The challenge to reverse this decline is enormous, but it can be done. And having had the experience of working in a regulated health system elsewhere, it was clear to me that we were indeed in special measures. Throughout my working life, I've enjoyed figuring stuff out and finding solutions to getting things done. So when the Chief Minister asked me to take on the role of Health Minister and the Assembly supported her nomination, I believe that was because people had confidence in the fact that I would get stuff done. Through careful deliberation and consideration of the issues, we agreed on 3 changes to reverse the situation: strengthen the leadership, bring in additional expertise to facilitate a turnaround, and establish a health board to improve oversight and governance. We knew the scale of the task ahead and created the conditions necessary to address the multifactorial issues facing our health service. In a spirit of collaboration and careful stewardship, not emotional or angry outbursts or rants over Twitter or Facebook, but we constructed a plan carefully considered, consulted on, and appropriately resourced and evidenced. The watershed moment came when I published the report into clinical governance by Professor Massey Taylor. Publishing this report has been a release for some, but not for others. And as you know, the report highlighted and provided robust evidence as to what was wrong in our health system. The public and the staff working in it were suffering. Patients were affected. It was clear things needed to change. The Chief Minister, our Chief Minister, supported this change in the interest of putting Islanders' interest first. Those who wish to deny the findings in the report and objected to the way in which the report recommendations were handled have peddled a narrative attacking the motivations and intentions behind my attempts to get good stuff done. As a team, we have stood resolute on our ambition to deliver better healthcare. And under this Chief Minister's leadership, we have made real progress. Not the tepid progress Deputy Balash asserts, but real progress. If members vote for this proposition today, they risk delaying all the progress we have made over the last months. I want to turn to Professor Matthew Taylor's contact and engagement with the health service. He has been treated in the most appalling way. Instead of valuing the expertise and experience he brought, he has been subject to a narrative that has denigrated the value of his international experience. Never can this assertion be further from the truth. But I ask Assembly members to think, when you hear this kind of thing, what does it say about Jersey when we cannot even value the contribution of a recognised international expert who was interested and committed to helping us get good things done? This resistance has been championed by Constable Jayan. So what I want to do now is I want to take a look at the record of some of the delivery that's taken place since being elected and since the publication of the Hugo Massey-Taylor report. Under my leadership, none of what we've delivered could or would have been achieved without the support and backing of the majority of the Chief Minister and my colleagues in the Council of Ministers. Samaray Ward reopened and plans now underway to transfer the service to St Ewells. Enid Kenneth Centre open and running a range of services. MRI waiting lists slashed. Health Board established and meeting in public. £3 million of efficiency delivered in 2023 and a financial recovery programme in place. A new turnaround team appointed, bringing real service improvements. Delays to discharge reduced from 43 beds to 20. 300 new staff appointed, including a specialist consultant rheumatologist. A freedom to speak up guardian to provide a safe space for staff to speak up on matters of concern without fear of reprisals. 77% of all mental health emergencies seen within 4 hours, 24/7 days a week, 24/7 hours a day, 7 days a week. A new director of midwifery appointed, implementation of a new electronic patient record, electronic prescribing introduced to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of pharmacy services, an end-of-life strategy produced, a cancer strategy produced. 65 weeks it's taken to deliver that, but it's clearly not enough. Under this Chief Minister's leadership, we've signed up to delivering an ambitious health agenda. She's been supportive and she's been enabling. It shows her strength of resilience against objection that she has been in the firing line from Constable Jayan and also from Deputy Binet, both of whom have walked away from their responsibilities. I remain, with her support, at this moment in time, making big decisions, big calls in the interest of Islanders. It's not easy, and I'm not the only one who has responsibility for taking big decisions. But the reason I mention it is because when you're in an environment that is working against you, it makes the decision-making really, really difficult, and more difficult than it needs to be. As a new minister, I didn't expect to experience the kind of culture to be so prevalent and accepted as the culture that I've experienced as a new minister. People tell me it's just politics. I have a different view, and calling it out has had serious consequences for me. So I just want to make a brief reference to the Commissioner for Standards investigation. I've made mistakes. I should have been more diligent. And having put the record straight, one would think that the Commissioner for Standards and PPC will have been satisfied, and others and myself hopefully learn from it. And I believe that that is the position. But it keeps coming up. Why does it keep coming up? Why is it undermining the work of the Commissioner for Standards and also the work of PPC? Exercising independence of mind on behalf of the people who elected me does take courage, in the face of those who expect me to do things their way or no way. It's because I haven't done what they wanted me to do that I have experienced the constant undermining, and the Chief Minister, in her support for my delivery, has supported me in my efforts to resist and keep moving forward. Despite all of the resistance to change, we've made progress. We're restoring public confidence. We have an engaged workforce. We're improving safety. We're improving accountability. Making progress under these conditions has taken its toll on me personally. It's a big job. And over the last 6 months, one of the things that I've been involved in is trying to actually make some progress around the new hospital facilities. But I just want to give Assembly members some context to the experience I've had around that. Deputy Tom Binet has refused to speak with me, engage with me, or sought to enter into any personal dialogue with me regarding the hospital development. I've had more conversations with Deputy Ayer this week over the new hospital than I had with him. He made it very clear to me that as the client for the new hospital, my views were not welcome. And as the Chief Minister referred to earlier, opportunities to build and repair relationships were there. He chose not to take them. So if this vote of no confidence succeeds today, the Assembly risks putting in jeopardy the progress and scale of change that has taken place within our health service. I realise that we haven't delivered as sharply in some of the areas we've wanted to, but we are, as people have said, a group of talented people, dedicated, committed, supportive of this Chief Minister's ambition to improve life for islanders. Things have been allowed to happen which should never have happened and affected the way in which we've performed as a Council of Minister. The way forward is to ignore the personality politics and renew and focus even more effort into getting good stuff done. This is what I'm doing, and I'll continue to do for as long as I'm allowed. We have an ambitious agenda for health that will see a further stage of transformation, investing in our primary care services, preventing ill health, developing new health facilities, and using the power of technology and business to put our health services on a sustainable footing. A new strategy will be the basis on which all of these things will be articulated. So, sir, I'd like to conclude by saying it's been a privilege for me to take this role. I felt the support, I felt the confidence, not only of my colleagues, but also of the public. And I urge Assembly members to consider what it means to the public in the context of this vote of no confidence today. They have expected us to deliver, and we are delivering. It is taking time, but we need an opportunity to get the job finished. And I urge members to consider not to support the vote of no confidence.
The next person listed to speak is Deputy Reniff, but I'm conscious that we have agreed to break at 5:30. It's rather before that, but it may be sensible to break now, because I'm sure Deputy Reniff will wish to speak for longer than 5 minutes. or possibly at least. So can I suggest that we adjourn now for 10 minutes, which was the period that was suggested by the Chair of PPC, and therefore we will start again at a fraction past 25 to.